All right. Party people in the house. We let people roll in, give it some time. Uh, Everybody, thanks for tuning in again. I think a lot of people got a lot of value out of it yesterday. I will add the link for people to call in. So let's do that. All right. So this right here is call in. And I am going to pin that. All right. Respect, respect. Ajamu. Enough respect. Yeah, we just, taking care of a few odds and ends here. I'm going to go ahead and pin the call in for those of you who are on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. Welcome. We have been doing this for the last few days, and it has been, I think, very helpful for a lot of people to put a lot of things in context. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to give a little rundown of what happened yesterday. Yesterday was a very, very, very interesting show yesterday, live that we did. Um, we had three brothers call in, and we had a mechanic, an aerospace engineer, inventor, scientist, and 3D printer, and we talked about manufacturing. Now, these are not the typical conversations that you usually see on the internet. Most of or social media, most of these conversations typically center around celebrity gossip or debates about kind of frivolous things. And I mean, you don't have to be serious all the time. There is a there is a space for conversations that aren't always heavy. But however, um, I'm doing this as a response to the numerous inboxes that I get for people asking me for advice for a whole wide range of issues. Big up Kai Wilson. Today is going to be very interesting because we're going to talk about something that is very important for each and every one of us. It's going to be a very unique conversation that most people have probably not had before. Talking about the psychology of winning, the epistemology of winning, and what winning is about, what winning means for the human psyche and human beings in general. Um, I'm going to wait till I see a couple more people coming in. I see people on Twitter. I see people on YouTube. I see people on Facebook. So we're going to, let your friends, let your family know. Those who are interested in being winners, identifying winners, understanding what winning does to the human psychology and even human biopsychology and biochemistry, and how it's related to industrial society in terms of modern society and what it means to be a winner in modern society, and how we are completely away from what most human beings experience throughout our evolution, that we are a new type of human being. So therefore, winning looks different in 2024 as to what it looked like maybe 20,000 years ago. But the psychological framework is the same. The biological imperatives are the same. And as we look at winning for the individual, it also applies to winning for the group. And those people who are used to winning uh, also have to make modifications to create a winning environment around them. You can be a superstar player. However, if you're on a team, strengths of the people around you. And one of the weaknesses of it'll be very interesting because we talk about the weaknesses of winners. Um, The best type of winning is being able to help other people around you win too, right? Because if you win or you're a winner or you're a star player, it's not very meaningful if people around you are losing. Let me give you an example. And winning doesn't go to the extremes. If you don't understand how to cultivate winning activities, people around you, because what we find out is that iron sharpens iron. When you're in a winning environment, it causes you to win more profusely. So it's important to know how to cultivate winners around you. Actually, the most extreme winners are those who know how to cultivate winners around them. Okay. So I'll give you the example of Michael Jordan. Yep. So yeah, big up Kai Wilson. Yeah, we'll be gravitating towards YouTube in the next couple of weeks. YouTube and X or Twitter, and we just announced things for people on Facebook. And I explained why, because Facebook does not engage in reciprocity for creators, user generated content. So big up Kai, and I look forward to you joining the stream because I know you got a lot of great things to say, and I'd love to be able to talk with you about Bitcoin as well and your experience with Bitcoin. I know you do Bitcoin training, and so you're welcome to come on. I've pinned and made available the live link, and let me comment right here on Facebook. Join me live or call in live. If you call in live, just be camera ready. We want this to be personal. We want this to be more of a community vibe instead of people avatars and all of that. We want this to be real people. Big up Gail Callwood. Um, I would see if I could try to pin the comment on Facebook, but I don't see that Facebook allows me to pin the comment. So that is for the call in live. If you want to really see where it is, where it doesn't move in terms of where you can call in, just go to YouTube. And the YouTube link is just my name. Uh, and you'll see it and it'll just say call in with StreamYard. For those people who want to call in, we had some great call-ins yesterday. We stayed on, we were on for like 4.5 hours yesterday. And it was a very historic and monumental live and conversation. So let's talk about winners. Uh, Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan was somebody who was supremely gifted and talented. He was supreme, and I can speak about Michael Jordan very intimately in the sense that I grew up in Chicago. So as a kid, Michael Jordan was everything to all of the young kids, young children of Chicago and eventually United States and the world. But because he played for the Chicago Bulls, his games were on every single day, and we were able to see that Michael Jordan was different, right? From the moment that he stepped into the NBA to the moment that he left the NBA, it was very clear that this was a different person. He was different than anybody else on that basketball court before him, or even at that time, even since, right? You've had your Kobe Bryants, but Kobe Bryant wouldn't have existed in terms of the mastery. Michael Jordan did not exist. Kobe Bryant would have told you that. But you've got every now and then you have what you call generational talent. And these are people who essentially look like they're from a different planet in terms of their poise, their grace, and how they perform. And so Michael Jordan was a unicorn. And these are very rare people because to be in the NBA in the first place, you have to be a unicorn. You'd have been a unicorn since probably around 11, 12 years old, where you were probably taller than everyone else and you were more athletic than everyone else. And typically, what happens is that a lot of those children, uh, they will reach a certain age and then they have to play around other young boys and young men who are similarly situated. So you no longer have a size advantage that you had. Because let's just say you were 12 years old, you were 6'2". You're taller than everybody, so you're dominating everybody. But what happens when you're around everyone else who's 6'2"? If you didn't grow, well, that's what happens, and that's what separates the wheat from the chaff in terms of who are going to be the next level athletes. So here you have Michael Jordan, uh, and you have this guy who's doing very well in college, and then he goes to the pros. He even takes it to a different level, and people are in awe of not only his skill level but his stamina. He's able to play from beginning to the end without seemingly being tired. Um, he's doing things on the basketball court where he's making other people who are unicorns look like they're regular horses, right? You've got to think and you've got to imagine that these are the best basketball players in the world, and he's making them look like children. Uh, and this is actually who you want to be and what you want to be. And I'm using Michael Jordan as a metaphor for everyone to understand because it's going to have higher implications for as we delve deeper into this conversation in terms of business, entrepreneurship, and success and winning for yourself, your family, and a group of people, or even a nation. And we're going to talk about psychology a little bit. But the problem with Michael Jordan, and this is the problem with high performing individuals, is that you think that everyone around you should perform at your capacity. You can't understand why, when you pass this person the ball, they don't dunk it the way you dunk it. They don't score it the way that you score it. They may lose the ball. It becomes very frustrating. So the first few years of Michael Jordan's experience with the Chicago Bulls, he was losing. He was clearly the best player. And Larry Bird said that, Michael Jordan was God in basketball shoes. And this was after the overtime play that he had. Okay, it says it's going in and out in terms of the audio. Okay, so I'm going to switch the audio because we can't have this going in and out. I am going to switch the audio to the camera's audio. You all can tell me how it sounds. I'm going to unplug this. Okay. Um, can you all hear me? Let me know if you can hear me. Let me know if it sounds fine. It shouldn't be going in and out now. I've used a different audio. Can someone just text in and just say that they can hear everything okay now? Can you hear everything all right? Okay, perfect. So I'll be using uh, the audio that comes with the camera instead of a separate audio. Okay, perfect. All right. Good, good, good. Big up Danetta Robinson, Bola Kaja. Big up Gail Caldwell. Big up Jason Thigpen to the world. Big up. Yeah, man. Good people have joined the stream, and I really hope that all these good people you can call in, and the people listening get to also witness your brilliance, because this isn't just about me. It's about us having a conversation that's going to elevate all of us, right? That's what this is all about. All right. So Michael Jordan's conundrum was he's around people who can't perform as well as him, and he can't understand why. So that leads to frustration because you're on a team and it happens to be a team sport. Michael Jordan's problems would have been solved if he was playing something like golf or tennis. However, he's dealing with a team sport, and so he had choices. He had choices that he'd be frustrated forever and just try to make it a one-man against five game, which inevitably would never work. It creates a whole bunch of problems in the locker room in terms of your relationships with people around you, and like his teammates. And also, you know that you are this great player, but you're losing. So it's an oxymoronic state of being, which could lead to a lot of issues for that individual who knows that they put in the time, they put in the work, and they've been given a God-given talent. They are not able to. So it all clicked when Michael Jordan started to understand this fundamental concept. Number one, you're being reasonable to expect everyone to think and behave and have the talent that you have around you. That's number one, because everyone is different. Of course, you want people to have a baseline competency. However, you lose when you want everyone to think and be like you, right? There's always a diversity of talent and a diversity of productivity amongst human beings. It does not mean that the people around you, but you as the leader, and this is what leaders do if leaders want to win. You don't throw away people, but you find a way to win with the cards that you're dealt. And so Michael Jordan started winning when he started realizing he can't pass the ball to John Paxson, who was like this, 6 foot tall, 6'1" tall cat who really he has a jump shot. That's all he has. So you can't expect him to go dribble the ball and jump to the moon and dunk on people. Um, you can't expect people to be playmakers who are not playmakers. And so what Michael Jordan had to do is he had to find the specific talents of the people around him and pass them the ball when they are in their most uh, opportune position to actually contribute to the team and to score. In other words, you're not going to ask Dennis Rodman to shoot a three-pointer, right? You understand what his talent is and what his strength is, and you don't expect him to do what you do. And so once you start to understand the strengths of the people around you, you pick up those strengths and you work with those strengths and you highlight those strengths. What happens is it increases their productivity, it increases their confidence, it increases the camaraderie amongst the unit. And you start having a winning attitude. Now, and winning results. Now, what people need to understand is that there's winners in this world and then there's losers in this world. Losing has an odor and winning has an aroma. There's a difference between an odor and an aroma. It is very important for you as a human being, children, that you may have to understand the difference. So for instance, there's a healing modality in health called aromatherapy, where you smell different smells and it's supposed to heal you. But it's not called odor therapy. It's called aromatherapy. Losing has a stench. It's up to you to be able to recognize that smell. Sometimes it's a metaphorical smell. And losers behave in a certain way. And so let's talk about what losers do and how to identify losers. It's very easy to do. When I was growing up, there was a TV show. It was called, and some of y'all who are around my age, you were born in the 70s, you remember the TV show was called The Bad News Bears. The Bad News Bears were, I believe, a baseball team of young kids who never won. And those people who've never been on a winning team, there are certain pathologies that losers behave in. So, what are those pathologies? Losers, because they're under the stench and the odor of losing, are never happy. They're always miserable. Losers will always point fingers at others. Losers will never accept their role in losing. So the running back of the football team now thinks that he should be the quarterback. They never want to play their position. it becomes ego driven and everyone is pointing fingers and nobody is actually doing what is necessary to do what it takes to win. And those people who are now used to losing, they find winning to be strange. They find the activities necessary to win to be strange. Losers who are not committed to winning will double down on their losing behavior. So they won't show up for practice. They won't sleep early. They won't prepare. They won't work out. They won't do what's necessary to do what the winning team does. And the winning team can perpetually run the same play on these losers and score a touchdown every time. Does this sound familiar to any one of y'all? Remember, as this applies to an individual, it can also apply to a nation. It can also apply to cultural groups. This is why yesterday, when we had the conversation that we had, and we talked about manufacturing because we're focused on winning. And winning in the natural world is never fair, and it is very brutal for the losers. And if you study world history, those who lose the wars always have a brutal ending. That's why it's important to not lose wars. So therefore, a group of people who are committed to will do what is necessary to actually win and not look for concessions for losing, because those are people who have gotten used to the stench and the odor of losing. Now let's talk about the individual. The individual has to be engaged in winning activity. What do I mean by that? If an individual is not engaged in winning activity, which is called the power principle, and what we're going to do, and what I'm going to share with you all, is a document that has shaped my life. This is a document, and we're going to share it, and I'm going to go through it. And this is going to be very important for people. But the document is Industrial Society and Its Future, otherwise known as the Unabomber's Manifesto. A lot of people say, what? The Unabomber's Manifesto. Why is that important? Well, this is going to be very, very important for people to understand and to read the Unabomber's Manifesto. First, you need to know who the Unabomber was. And a lot of people have heard of the Unabomber, but don't really know who he was. So let me just give you a breakdown of who the Unabomber was. The Unabomber was a guy named Ted Kaczynski. Ted Kaczynski was a mathematical genius. He went to Harvard and actually became, I believe, a professor of mathematics at Harvard for some time, until he decided to withdraw from society because he didn't like the way that society was going. It turns out that the Unabomber, Ted Kaczynski, as a child, was actually put into the CIA's MK Ultra program, which was based on mind control. This is not a conspiracy. This is actually a fact. You could put Ted Kaczynski, Unabomber, MK Ultra, mind control program. And so some things happened to him when he was younger. He was released from the program and made to fend for himself as an adult world in a whole different way. However, he had some very profound insights. And I think that everybody should read the Unabomber's Manifesto, and we're going to go over it, and it has shaped my life in a very profound way. And I always recommend it to winners so they can understand what's going on with themselves and what's going on with society. It is a critique of industrial society. And so what the Unabomber did was that he withdrew from society, and he also understood that there were scientists engaged in making bombs, for the defense industry. So what he decided to do was he would send people packages, these same scientists packages that would end up blowing up. When these packages would blow up, he would say, well, since you're making bombs to blow up other villages, other societies, other countries, you should at least taste how your own medicine tastes. Hmm? This is what he said. So for him, it was very poetic that if you're making bombs that are eventually going to fall on people, many times innocent people, civilians, then you yourself, as the maker and the contributor to these bombs, should understand what it is that you're doing and taste that same medicine for yourself. In other societies, and if he was actually part of any military for any country, he would be the hero, right? And the reason is because states, such as a country, governments, they require that they have a monopoly on violence, right? They do not want anyone else to have a right to violence. They want to have a monopoly on violence. So therefore, when you commit violence on behalf of the state, you become a national hero. But if you don't do it on behalf of the state, you are then deemed a terrorist. So these are the characteristics of state power, and these characteristics are universal to every state. Every state wants a monopoly on violence and for its citizens to be held at bay. So even when they talk about the Second Amendment in America, they don't really mean the Second Amendment in America, that you would have the weapons necessary to defeat the American government. So they'll say, yeah, you can have your guns, but you're not going to be able to have atomic weapons. You're not going to be able to have missile launchers. You're not going to be able to have air. You're not going to be able to have like a air control, private air control facility because that's a little too much because the state wants the monopoly on violence. Well, the Unabomber actually went against that and said that, well, violence should not be in the hands of the state only if you're going to perpetuate violence. But then you need to understand as the perpetrator of violence, what violence actually feels like and what it feels like when it's introduced to your own doorstep. Okay? You might ask, what does this have to do with winning? Well, let's look at the Unabomber's manifesto. And this is all going to be very important. And people can call in, we can talk about this. And this also explains why I am addicted to winning. And I'm able to identify losers from 20 miles away because losers behave all in the same way. They blame other people. They have critiques for other people. They are not focused on self-improvement, but rather the degradation of others to make themselves feel better. They are ego-driven and not results-driven. They typically are distracted by everything besides what is actually necessary to win because they are not accustomed to winning. And understand that losing is a virus. It spreads. And you can get sucked up into losing environments, losing people, where you don't recognize that you start engaging in losing rituals as well. So it's important for you to understand and to be able to identify losers and winners quite quickly. And it will change the trajectory of your life. Um, so let's look at the Unabomber's manifesto. Many of you, this will be the first time that you're actually seeing something like this. And it's a shame that you live in a society that doesn't really enlighten you on things that really could change your life. I've had to do these things myself because I gave up on the educational system, society being able to show me how to thrive. And as Malcolm X said, whoever the mainstream media and the government tells you to run away from, that's who you need to run to, or at least explore what they have to say on their own. other people with different agendas giving you a narrative as to who these people are. You should do your exploration on your own. One of the clues is when government is a society that is not put in place to actually help you thrive, identify someone as an enemy or as a miscreant or somebody who is a persona non grata in that society, you should look into it. And who they tell you are heroes, you should look into that and question the heroes as well, because those usually will not be heroes for your family, your culture, and what have you. So it's a good rule of thumb that I've been using ever since I read that Malcolm X quote. Great people exist for a reason. Never allow the works of great people to go dormant. Understand that they made a contribution, and usually it's eternally fresh. And you should revisit their thoughts, their writings, and everything because it'll give you advantage over the average person. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to share the Unabomber's Manifesto, also known as Industrial Society and its Future. Now, what, oh, they say the audio is going in and out? Yeah, I don't know what to do about that. I'm using this. Can you all hear me? Is it okay? Can you all hear me? Let me know if you can hear me. Can you all hear me now? Just okay, good. All right. I am going to share. It says in and out. I am not clear why it would be going in and out. Something I'll have to work on at some point. So I'm going to share the Unabomber's Manifesto. I want you all to see this because okay, it goes in and out when I turn my head a certain way. That's really strange. Okay. Um, let's do this. You know what it might be? It might be the table moving. All right. This is very, very important. Then we can chop it up. So what's very unique about his writing is that he writes it point by point. So it's not just like how people write a book with different paragraphs. He gives you point one, as you can see, point two, point three, point four, point five, and all of that. Okay. What I want to do is I want to start where he talks about, because what's necessary for our conversation is this section here, the power process. Okay. And I'm gonna read it and I'm gonna get into it, do a little commentary on it. The power process, and this is very important for not only individuals but also groups. Okay. All right. Check this out, y'all. I'll highlight it and we'll go over it. Okay. Human beings have a need, probably based in biology, for something that we will call the power process. He's talking about all human beings. This is closely related to the need for power, which is widely recognized but is not quite the same. So, power process is different than the need for power. So, we're not talking about like the power of being able to rule over anybody, but it's just about the power process. The power process, he says, has four elements. The three most clear cut of these we call goal, effort, and attainment of goal. Right? Those of you who have children and those who put your children into sports, you're going to understand this very clearly. And if you are someone who's an entrepreneur, or somebody who has achieved many things in life, great things in life, you're going to understand this. And if you've failed a lot in life, you're going to understand this as well. Everyone needs to have goals whose attainment requires effort and needs to succeed in attaining at least some of his goals. Okay? Because if you're able, and this is my commentary, if you're able to attain something without effort, it leads to certain psychological dispositions. And if you make effort and you're never successful in attaining goals, it also leads to certain psychological dispositions. So, the fourth element is more difficult to define and may not be necessary for everyone. We call it autonomy, and we'll discuss it later. Okay? It turns out that autonomy is something that is necessary for someone like me. Okay? But we're going to go deeper into it. So he breaks it down. Point 34. Consider the hypothetical case of a man who can have anything he wants just by wishing for it. Such a man, sorry, I went a little too far. Such a man has power, but he will develop serious psychological problems. At first, he will have a lot of fun, but by and by, he will become acutely bored and demoralized. Eventually, he may become clinically depressed. History shows that leisured aristocracies tend to become decadent, right? Those of us have heard the stories of the rich kid who never had to work for anything, and they either become very depressed people because they have nothing to look forward to, or they become decadent. They want more of this and more of that, right? They need to have more. They need to have more food. They need more and more and more. And this is what's called decadence or gluttony. Okay? This is not true of fighting aristocracies that have to struggle to maintain their power. That means that they actually don't have things easy. They have to fight for the society that they want to have. And so there's no decadence involved in those types of people because they actually have to engage in something difficult to achieve a goal of maintaining their power. But the leisured, secure aristocracies that have no need to exert themselves usually become more hedonistic and demoralized, even though they have power. This is the description of modern day United States. Okay? Modern day United States, there's a saying that says that there's a quote, and I want to get it right. It says that hard men create soft times. Soft times create soft men create hard times, and those hard times then create hard men, which then create soft times, right? So we're in a cycle where we're in soft times where we've created soft men, right? And we're going to get into that softness, right? And what are the elements of it and what how industrial society creates soft men, and we're living in industrial society and soft women, right? So this isn't just a male thing, but it creates certain types of hedonism, bored people, demoralized people, and people who have all types of psychological dispositions. That's why in America, people over 35 are the biggest consumers of anti-anxiety medication and anti-depressive medication and all those types of things. You're basically living in a medicated society because people actually don't have real goals that they have to achieve. What they have to do is basically just have a job. And the requirements of the job is one thing, discipline. I mean, not discipline, obedience. Right? So you just have to be obedience to have a job. And with that obedience, you're given your basic needs of housing, food, and all of that. He talks about that, but that was my commentary just to lay the table for y'all to understand where this guy is coming from. It's very profound. Okay. But leisured, secure aristocracies that have no need to exert themselves usually become bored, hedonistic, and demoralized, even though they have power. This shows that power is not enough. Did y'all get that? Power is not enough. One must have goals towards which to exercise one's power. Number 35. Everyone has goals, if nothing else, to obtain the physical necessities of life. Food, water, and whatever clothing and shelter are made necessary by the climate. But the leisured aristocrat obtains these things without effort. So when you are living in an aristocratic society compared to other societies where you have people who actually have to really, really struggle to survive. You have different psychological dispositions when you live in a society that basically gives you welfare, gives you housing like Section 8 housing, gives you all of these things that provide for basic needs with very little effort. It creates certain psychological disposition. All right. Hence is boredom and demoralization, right? Boredom is a modern phenomenon, y'all. This is my commentary. Boredom is a modern phenomenon. The person who was evolving in the plains, who had to hunt for their food and had to dodge animals and had to come up with ways to survive and to keep their community alive in early human history, when hunter-gatherer societies, they were never bored. Boredom was something that never crossed their minds because every day you had to fight for your survival. Okay? So boredom for people, groups, societies is actually a very new phenomenon that has been afforded to people through industrial society. Okay. Non-attainment, and this is very important, non-attainment of important goals results in death if the goals are physical necessities, and in frustration if the non-attainment of the goals is compatible with survival. What is he saying there? That in early societies of human beings, if you did not achieve the goal of proper farming to grow your crops, or hunting to get your food, or the goal of building a house to protect you from bad weather, the result was death. Okay? However, in industrial society, because that is already provided for you with only one requirement of obedience, getting a job, a 9 to 5, we call it, what you'll leave with is frustration. So you won't die, but you will be frustrated, which is also a slow emotional death. Okay? Consistent failure to attain goals throughout life results in defeatism, low self-esteem, or depression. Okay? This is why winning should become an addiction. Because when you don't win and you consistently fail to attain goals, particularly goals that are not necessary for you to live, but goals that you have in your life and you never win, you actually engage in what you call defeatism, low self-esteem, or depression. How many of us know people who have lost before they've even started because they don't believe in themselves? The reason why they don't believe in themselves, remember the bad news bears. The bad news bears don't believe that they can win. So as this applies to a person, it can also apply to a people. If you don't feel like you've had a win or you haven't had a win in a long time, you start engaging in defeatist behavior, low self-esteem, where you want to worship other people, where you have no faith in yourself or the people who reflect or look like you. So when this person says they're going to do something, you don't think that they're going to win. So you don't. This is what happened with our people when we felt that the white man's ice was colder than the black man's ice, because we were taught that we hadn't won in so long that we started engaging in personal low self-esteem and group low self-esteem. Okay? This is very important. So when you're around people who don't believe in themselves, who are already defeated, who need pep talks to get things done, you understand that the reason why they need pep talks to get things done is because they are not familiar with the aroma of success and they have become used to the odor of failure. Defeatism, low self-esteem, or depression. And how many people are on antidepressant drugs in America? A lot. How many people have low self-esteem? You see it on social media. A lot of people have low self-esteem. So they try to do things to try to combat that, but they don't understand the mechanisms in which to become winners. So it becomes a cycle of defeatism. And people who are defeated can't get along with anyone else because everyone else around them, they can also see as defeated. And so why would you have faith or confidence or trust in the people around you who you also are defeated like you? Okay? This is why I say that losing is an odor, winning is an aroma. Now, this is very important. People should just take this and post that in their thoughts or as a reminder. Consistent failure to attain goals throughout life results in defeatism, low self esteem, or depression. This is a fact. That's why you have to be engaged in small wins that require effort because those small wins give you the confidence in yourself. And it actually reverses defeatism, it reverses low self esteem. You can see this with children, right? These children have to get wins in life, small wins, so that they know that they can depend on themselves and have trust in themselves. Low self esteem really means that you do not trust yourself to win. Okay? All right. And you start to see this with the people around you. Who are the people who have low self esteem, the people who don't trust themselves? If you're not careful, you'll be sucked into their odor of self defeatism. Okay? All right. So, what does he say in point 37? Thus, in order to avoid serious psychological problems, a human being needs goals whose attainment requires effort, and he must have a reasonable rate of success in attaining his goals. So, effort is key and a reasonable rate of success. Without effort, the success is meaningless, right? That is why many people who have 9 to 5s that pay them a lot of money are still depressed because it requires no effort. Most of these jobs that you're doing require very little effort because once you understand that job, you're basically repeating your activities day after day. There's nothing that requires any real effort. So it is up to you to find things that are going to challenge you in life so that you can maintain a certain psychological disposition without having psychopathies, right? So, and these things that you have set for yourself that require a reasonable amount of effort, you have to be able to reasonably succeed at a reasonable rate because if you fail at those things, that also leads to low self esteem. This is why winning is the topic of the day, and that you have to put yourself in situations where you can regularly win. It's very important for the human disposition, winning. And it's very important for people, for an ethnic. Remember, we talked about the Chinese in the live that I did 2 days ago, where I talked about the Opium Wars. And I broke that down. For those who missed it, just go to Monday's live. And I broke down the Opium Wars. And when the Chinese lost in the Opium Wars, it was called the period of national disgrace. Okay? This is all very important because as is important for you, is also important for a people. Okay, so people have to have small wins to start feeling good about themselves. And until they do that, they're going to be engaged in finger pointing, low self esteem, depression, defeatism, and ego chasing, false ego chasing, because nobody's won anything in a long time. So no one actually has a right to have an ego. Okay, what are these things that you put in your life if you have a 9 to 5 that takes care of your basic needs, which is your housing, your food, your shelter? Remember, back in the past, We had to actually expend some type of effort just to live. Industrial society makes it so you don't have to plant food anymore and go through the process of waiting for food to grow, not knowing whether you're going to be successful or not. But imagine the people that grown their food, knowing that the food may not grow, which may cause them all to die. It means something completely different when you have a successful harvest. That's why in most agrarian societies worldwide, they have harvest festivals. They're not just celebrating just to celebrate. They're celebrating because they have conquered something that required reasonable effort that allowed them to live and survive. Now, all you have to do is go to the grocery store and you can get whatever you want. So that aspect has completely taken out of the human experience. This is very, very important. Understand that people who had to farm to survive and people who had to hunt to survive never suffered from depression because the fact that they were alive was meaning that they were successful in something reasonably difficult, which kept their psychological disposition healthy. You see, when you live in industrial society, you're living in a very psychologically unhealthy society because people don't have to exert any effort for their basic needs. All they have to do is get a 9 to 5, which only requires obedience. All right. I'm going to read this part again because we're going to get into the important part. But he's laying the table. Thus, in order to avoid serious psychological problems, a human being needs goals whose attainment requires effort, and he must have a reasonable rate of success in attaining his goals. Those are necessary for a healthy psychological disposition and what you call a balanced human being. Surrogate activities. This is very important. But not every leisure, and remember, when you talk about a leisure aristocrat, we're not just talking about a wealthy person, we're also talking about a wealthy society that all you have to do is go to the grocery store to get your food. You know, you can get mortgages, you can do all these types of things that people never had to do before that actually required effort to build a house, where all you have to do now is just have a job and have obedience, and you can get a house, right? So check this out. But not every leisured aristocrat becomes bored and demoralized. For example, the Emperor Hirohito. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this screen just a little bit bigger so that people can see it a little bit more. So let's, okay, I think that's a little bit better. Let me just take a pause before we go to surrogate activities. Is everybody understanding where I'm going with this? Is this clear? You can just type in and say, yeah. Is this clear? You all understanding this? Is this giving you some insight, not only to your life, but others around you, and also about a people? Just let me know. Okay. Yeah, Lowell. Give thanks. I'm going to go to where it says surrogate activities. Now, this is very important for industrial society. Talked about the power process. Surrogate activities. Check this out. Not every leisured aristocrat becomes bored and demoralized. For example, the Emperor Hirohito, he was the emperor of Japan, y'all, who was considered a god in Japan. Okay? The Japanese have a religion called Shintoism. And in that religion, the emperor is declared a god as a divine being, like in many other ancient societies. But that's how they do it in Japan. So the Emperor Hirohito, he was the emperor during World War II as well. Instead of sinking into decadent hedonism, he devoted himself to marine biology, a field in which he became distinguished. So what he's saying is that the Emperor Hirohito could snap and have anything that he wanted. And for him To not be bored, he would sink into decadent hedonism, right? He can get whatever he wants, so more cars, more houses, more food, more women, more this, more that. You understand what I'm saying? That's what you call hedonism or gluttony. But what kept him away from hedonism and gluttony, because remember, this only happens when you don't have to expend any effort towards your goals or your success. You can sink into decadent hedonism. And this is what America has become. That's what ancient Rome became. As many societies became societies of decadent hedonism because everything was provided for people in terms of their basic needs. And so to escape hedonism or depression, you have to devote yourself to what is referred to as a surrogate activity. The surrogate activity that Emperor Hirohito engaged himself in was marine science to the point where he became one of the world's top experts in marine science because he had a lot of time on his hands and he decided to pick up marine biology as an intellectual curiosity. Not that he had to, but this is what kept him balanced and healthy as a human being in terms of psychologically. And the fact that he had to devote some effort and became successful gave him the power principle, not the power to rule over anybody, but that autonomous power principle that the human being gets to feel good about themselves. There are many people who are wealthy and have leadership that do not feel good about themselves because everything has been given to them easily, right? And this is actually the problem of the wealthy. How do you train your children not to become spoiled? Because if they become spoiled, they become decadent hedons. They get involved in hedonism. They get involved in gluttony, and you don't want your children to turn out that way. But you will notice that even if you're not a wealthy person, if you're a middle class person in America, and this is where you can see this in action, right? Take an American and have them go to an underdeveloped country and see how uncomfortable they are. See how uncomfortable they are in an environment where people normally live without water every day, without electricity every day. Then you'll understand that you are actually an aristocrat that's being described here right now because everything is relative, right? You might think that you're struggling in America, but even if you live in the projects in America, you still got electricity, you still got heat when it's cold, you still got AC when it's hot. Living in the projects. You go to other countries, it ain't like that. So you're actually living in a very aristocratic society where people are spoiled, right? And you'll see it if you've ever done a tour with people to countries for the first time, is that most of the people are complaining all the time because they can't handle moments of discomfort, which is very normal for the average person of that host country that you go to. Okay? Because America is actually a decadent society and you don't realize how much it's affected you. You don't even realize how decadent you are in terms of needing to eat 4 or 5 meals a day when most people in the world are eating 1 meal a day, right? But if you don't get that third meal, you're very uncomfortable and you start acting out. That is the test to let you know that you actually are part of this aristocracy that this guy is actually talking about. Many people don't think that they are, but the way you react to discomfort on certain basic things, like you don't have internet for 10 minutes and you're going crazy. Your cell, your cell phone ain't working for the day and you're going crazy. Not because you need to make a emergency call, because the convenience. Many of us don't realize how privileged we are until we start traveling the world. That's why travel is very important to put things into perspective. Because living in the projects in New York City actually has better quality of life than someone who might be middle class, like Indonesia or a place like Somalia. You're never worried about your electricity going out. You're never worried about water stop running. But middle class people all over the world in developing countries know what it means for their water. They know what it means for their water to run out. Okay, the sound is fading in and out. I don't know um, what's going on with that. Let me know if you all can hear me clearly. Can you all hear me clearly? Is it back? Is everything good? Just text and let me know if you can hear everything clearly. Yeah, big up. And this is why actually, okay, you can't hear me. I mean, can you hear me? Or is it, or is it back? Is it good? Let me see if I can put this closer. It might be the internet. I'm not sure. Okay, it's good. Okay, give thanks, Jason. All right. This is why actually, if you live in an industrial society like America or Europe, where all these things are provided to you, um, all you have to do is just be obedient. It is very important for you to engage in fasting, right? Because fasting makes you understand what it really means to be alive and to understand that the human body actually evolved not eating 3, 4 meals a day, right? And the fact that you're eating so much is the reason why so many people are sick with metabolic syndrome, which means high blood pressure, diabetes, and all. The human body was not meant for gluttony, which if you live in the West, and you can actually see it. If you ever can, just like I remember I went to Jamaica one time and I was sitting there at a resort. And the resort was one of these like all-inclusive resorts. So there were many Americans there. Most of the people there were Black Americans, right? And so it's in Jamaica, so it's just all Black folks. You can't really know who was American or who was, from Jamaica until you hear people talk. But you could know who was American. Why was I able to tell who's American without speaking? Because most of the Americans that I saw were obese. So the obese people I knew, they weren't Jamaicans, they were Americans. Americans walked slower, they had a different type of gait where you could see that the Jamaicans were sprightly, they walked fast, they walked with purpose, they walked with strength. That's because you had the same Black folks, but Black folks coming from a decadent society with compared to Black folks that were not coming from a decadent society, a society where people are more grounded, where people don't have the same opulence, people don't have buffets around them. All people are not engaged in abundance as much, right? It starts to happen as more and more societies become industrialized. So this is something that people need to keep in mind. So we talk about manufacturing a lot. We talk about artificial intelligence. There's no way to stop it, but it's also very clear that the cultural custodians need to institute certain types of uh, norms to keep people away from some of the pitfalls of industrial society, and also understanding what winning and losing looks like in your personal life and also in family life and group life and national life. Okay. And I'm able to see that in Rwanda as well, in terms of what they were able to do to create a winning psychology based on national pride. And these are people coming out of a genocide. So that's a whole other interesting part of the conversation. But let's just finish with the Unabomber talk. When he's talking about surrogate activities, it's going to be very applicable to most of the people listening. Okay, he talks about Hirohito. When people do not have to exert themselves to satisfy their physical needs, they often set up artificial goals for themselves. In many cases, they then pursue these goals with the same energy and emotional involvement that they otherwise would have put into the search for physical necessities. What does he mean by that? Remember, we no longer have to hunt. We no longer have to plant and wait for our food to grow. We no longer have to deal with the insecurity of day-to-day living because we're living in a society where you have a fire department, you have a police department, you have all of these luxuries. And so it is up to you now to come up with activities that allow you to engage in that same process of reasonably difficult things that require a reasonable amount of effort to have success on a daily basis. Understand the people who lived in these hunter-gatherer societies, these agrarian societies, societies where they had to hunt for their food, or had to plant, and all of these types of things. They were engaged in real serious effort towards their survival. But what happens to people, that aspect is taken out of human existence. Well, then you have to then engage in a surrogate activity which you approach with the same amount of zeal as you would your survival. And that is the key to people who succeed in these societies. They're the people who go just as hard in their entrepreneurship, or they're studying a certain thing to become a subject matter expert. They go with it, they go towards it with the same passion as somebody who is trying to kill an animal so that their family will not starve. You see, that is the separation between people who are successful through their own effort and people who are not. Okay? People who are not do not approach the things that they would want in their life with the same amount of passion or zeal as if their life or death depended on it. This is why Kobe Bryant and Michael Jordan were the first in the gym and the last in the gym, because they approached being basketball players as if their life depended on it, their survival depended on it. And you see this: entrepreneurs, people who did well in school, people who stayed up longer, people who take their fitness seriously, people who do different things in a regimented way, the way that you would approach a field that is necessary to be a successful farm. Because if this farm does not work out, all of us die. So guess what? I'm waking up at 4 in the morning. I'm making sure that the rabbits don't eat up all of the food. I'm making sure that these plants are watered. But then you got someone next door who's not approaching farming with the same amount of zeal because their life doesn't depend on it. Who's going to be more successful? I need you all to understand this. Remember that success requires effort. And the people who put the most effort, almost a psychopathological effort into things. When you hear people talk about Michael Jordan, they talk about how pathological he was about winning and why he got paid more than everyone else on that team because of his approach. He took it as a life or death matter, as if his survival depended upon it. Whereas the other basketball players, it was just a job for them. But who ends up in the history books as a successful practitioner of basketball, and who gets left out of history? Nobody's going to remember Will Purdue 100 years from now. He was a teammate of mine. Many of you say, who the hell is Will Purdue? Exactly. And this is why I've been successful in different aspects of my life, whether it came to studying finance or entrepreneurship or what have you, that I was willing to do what was necessary as if my life depended on it, as if I was hunting for food for my family. And if I didn't catch this meal, we're all going to die. If you have that approach, see what the Unabomber is talking about. If you have that approach, not only do you become successful, you actually become psychologically healthy. And then you're able to pass on the love to other people. Losers cannot appropriately love. Because if you don't believe in yourself, have high self-esteem in yourself, how can you expect other people to believe in you? So that means that you can't even receive the love that you think that you deserve, and you certainly can't pour it back into other people because you're in a state of distress most of the time, and you're not able to give love. Love is most given when you feel great about yourself. See, this is a very important conversation. This is why I'm saying this is why the title of this is why we are addicted to winning. And I don't care if you have to game the system to create small wins for you in life, because those small wins that give you some type of success based on reasonable effort is what is going to make you feel good about yourself, make you feel love towards yourself, and then be able to be in loving relationships with others. If you are constantly losing, you are in no situation to love others and to love yourself. And as this applies to an individual, it also applies to a people. Okay, let's get more into this. When people do not have to exert themselves to satisfy their physical needs, they often set up artificial goals for themselves. In many cases, they then pursue those goals with the same energy and emotional involvement that they otherwise would have put into the search for physical necessities, survival, food, clothes, shelter, water. Though thus the aristocrats of the Roman Empire had their literary pretensions, many European aristocrats a few centuries ago invested tremendous time and energy in hunting, though they certainly didn't need the meat. Other aristocracies have competed for status through elaborate displays of wealth, and a few aristocrats like Hirohito have turned to science. We use the term surrogate activity to designate an activity that is directed toward an artificial goal that people set up for themselves merely in order to have some goal to work toward, or let us say merely for the sake of the fulfillment that they get from pursuing the goal. Here is a rule of thumb for the identification of surrogate activities. Given a person who devotes much time and energy to the pursuit of goal X, ask yourself this. If he had to devote most of his time and energy to satisfying his biological needs, and if that effort required him to use his physical and mental faculties in a varied and interesting way, would he feel seriously deprived because he did not attain goal X? If the answer is no, then the person's pursuit of goal X is a surrogate activity. Other words, they put a lot of effort into this thing as if it was something very necessary for their survival. And if they did not attain goal X, how would they feel about it? And if the answer is no, that they would not feel seriously deprived, then it's not a surrogate activity. So what it is that something has to be important to you. And if you are not able to engage in that thing, would you feel deprived? And that's why I talked about those things that would make you happy, like what you would call the indispensable list of happiness. So, for instance, it it is necessary for me in terms of my personal makeup to have a mango orchard. Okay, saying that this is it's a bit choppy. Okay, we'll just have to work on the sound. I don't know why the sound is this choppy. It must be the internet, right? Um, the mango orchard requires effort from me. And if it didn't work out, would it affect? Yes, it would, because it's very important to me. So the mango orchard that I'm growing, although it's a business, it's not something that I need to survive. It is a surrogate activity, but it requires effort. I have to wake up and water the plants. I have to take care of the trees. I have to engage in farm-like activity. I have to exhort physical activity towards these trees, and I have to do something that is not required in industrial society, which is show patience, right? You live in a fast food society, everything is quick. Well, farming, growing trees, growing plants actually brings you back to the original human being, because the original human being never knew what it meant to have food without having to wait for it. See, we're completely different. we're in terms of fruits and vegetables, we had to wait for it. Now all you have to do is go to the grocery. We're completely different human beings than the rest of human existence in terms of the time frame of human existence on Earth. The last 200 years have really comprised of making a whole different type of human being, and there are consequences to it. Okay, like Lowell's saying right now, being a mechanic was a surrogate activity. He could have gotten a job at any uh, place doing anything as a 9 to 5, even being a telemarketer. But because he has a love for cars and fixing cars, he decided to become a mechanic and marry that with his economic uh, identity. So he's actually engaged in a surrogate activity by having the business that he has, because without it, he would actually feel deprived. It's very important to find out what is important to you and what makes you happy, because it is going to affect your psychological disposition. That's why so many people are depressed, even though they are making money, but they don't feel like they're doing what they love, right? This is very important. You can't feel like you're winning if you're successful doing something that you don't love. Another example is the musician who has a hit song that they hate. Many musicians are in this position, like the song that they didn't like became the hit. That is the worst thing that can happen to a musician, because now you have to tour the world for the next 25 years performing that song you hate just to make money. Even though you're making a lot of money, you actually hate singing that song because you were forced to sing it all the time now just to survive. And you talk to that person, that's not a happy person. That person is not engaged in a surrogate activity, because they don't feel deprived if they weren't able to do it. Okay? All right. They actually feel boxed in to have to do it. Okay. Hirohito's studies in marine biology clearly constituted a surrogate activity, since it is pretty certain that if Hirohito had to spend his time working at interesting non-scientific tasks in order to obtain the necessities of life, he would not have felt deprived, because he did not know all about the anatomy and life cycles of marine animals. On the other hand, the pursuit of sex and love is not a surrogate activity, because most people, even if their existence were otherwise satisfactory, would feel deprived if they pass their lives without ever having a relationship with a member of the opposite sex. That's just other stuff that he's talking about. But the point is this, is that in industrial society, you're going to have to engage in surrogate activity. And the surrogate activity you might marry with your economic life. And the people who are happiest are people who marry surrogate activities with their economic life. So I love my job. I love my business. I love what I do for a living. And therefore, you never have to retire. Some of the most depressed people on earth are people who have retired because they feel like they no longer have any purpose. And those people die quick deaths because they have nothing to look forward to. Okay. Now he talks about a thing called autonomy, and I don't want to go too much longer, but this is something that I need, um, is autonomy. And that's why I'm not good to be a worker. He talks about that being the last part of the power process. Autonomy as a part of the power process may not be necessary for every individual, but most people need a greater or lesser degree of autonomy in working towards their goals. Their efforts must be undertaken on their own initiative and must be under their own direction and control. Yet most people do not have to exert this initiative, direction, and control as single individuals. It is usually enough to act as a member of a small group. That's why a lot of people need community, because it is not fun to win by yourself. I talk about that all the time. Thus, if half a dozen people discuss a goal amongst themselves, make a successful joint effort to attain that goal, their need for the power process will be served. But if they work under rigid orders handed down from above that leave them no room for autonomous decision and initiative, in other words, a 9 to 5 job, that their need for the power process will not be served. The same is true when decisions are made on a collective basis. If the group making the collective decision is so large that the role of each individual is insignificant, right? So you need to feel some type of ownership in the things that you're doing. And if you're engaged in, let's say you're working for Microsoft and you know that Microsoft has a great quarter, well, that necessarily isn't going to serve your need for the power process because it's such a big organization that you don't feel that Microsoft is necessarily you or your identity because it's just way too big for you to feel any part of it. Okay? And he says it is that some individuals seem to have little need for autonomy. I'm one of the people who do, some people don't. Either their drive for power is weak or they're satisfied by identifying themselves with some powerful organization to which they belong. These are people who get involved in religions, people who get involved in cults, and also people who get involved in things like the military, and they're just happy to be a soldier. It says, and then there are unthinking animal types, right, who seem to be satisfied with purely physical sense of power. A good combat soldier who gets a sense of power by developing fighting skills that he is quite content to use in blind obedience to his superiors. These are the types of people that powerful people need. Powerful people do not maintain their power without identifying and controlling these types of people. People who follow orders and people who feel good to follow orders. I'm just not that type of person, right? But the thing is that it turns out that there's some type of gene that human beings have. It's called the worship gene, and you can look into that. And if you can tap into that as a powerful person, you get those people to serve you all the time because you can feed them narratives to cause them to worship your cause. And a religion does not necessarily have to do with a you know a redeeming figure, but a religion can just be something that you pledge fealty to. Patriotism can be a religion. Um, that's one of the examples. But he talks about it in depth. Now, I don't want to get too deep into all of this, but I would, because I want to talk about winning and what it looks like and what the psychological disposition is within industrial society. Because for people, most people have not experienced what it means to be a winner because industrial society has completely negated that for you because all you have to do is get a job to survive. Those people who lived in agrarian societies where people had to help each other out to be able to fight against the elements in nature and animals killing you, what have you, the success gained every day was the success of survival, which gave them a sense of internal and individual and group power. But what happens when people have not had individual or group power? They engage in self-sabotage and activities that do not lend to winning. Okay? This is why when you do start to win, it becomes addictive. Now, me myself, I'm addicted to winning. That's the only thing that makes me happy. I am not happy working a 9 to 5. That's not enough for me just to be able to meet my basic needs. And what you find out is that the ones healthiest people are those who win with a purpose, particularly if you can find a purpose to leave the world in a better place than you found it. These are the types of people that we want to work with, and these are the type of people that we want to identify, people who've gotten surrogate activities for the betterment of their people and humankind. So when I look at people and I talk to people, I try to really find out what their surrogate activities are, and I try to find out what is the quality of their surrogate activities. What has led me to do is that I've been able to develop a circle of phenomenal people who are engaged in surrogate activities that have caused them to be reasonably successful in life, but more importantly, emotionally balanced because they have been fed with the aroma of success, which leads to stability. These people are not suffering from depression. These people are not suffering from anxiety. These people are not suffering from low self-esteem and what have you. Now, people are saying that it's getting choppy from time to time, and I don't know what's causing that. I'll try to discover what that is, but at this point, I want to take any questions that people may have. And first thing I want to ask people, from what you heard though, was it informative and did it give you some type of insight into your own life and the life of the people around you and to understand groups, nations, cultures a little bit better? Let me know. If you want to call in, feel free to call in and let's chop it up. Let me know. I'll wait. People let me know how they felt about success, winning, and what industrial society does to the human personality and how we find ourselves in the world. Anybody got any questions? Did y'all understand this? I try to make it. I try to make it understandable for anybody to really start taking an inventory of your own life. You know, and are you engaging activities that you've been successful? What you'll find out, we're not happy. They haven't had a win in a long time. Yes, it makes you feel less guilty about winning. No, you should never feel guilty about winning. Um, and usually, about winning, um, Ami, there is what's called survivor's remorse. Survivor's remorse is people, particularly people who got out of a bad situation, bad community situation. They got out and they feel guilty for getting out because they know the people who got left behind. Usually, something that soldiers, like people who went to Vietnam and all their friends died, and they're the only one from their company. You have survivor's remorse, like why am I alive and all my friends died? Survivor's remorse also is something that a lot of people who reach 90, 100 years old, everyone that they knew has usually passed away, even their own children, sometimes their grandchildren. So they have some survivor's remorse instead of celebrating old age. So survivor's remorse is a real situation. It happens to people who come into wealth right away, particularly at a young age. Athletes have survivor's remorse. That's why they bring their homies they grew up with them all the time. But what happens with survivor's remorse is you end up compensating other people who have not earned it just so you can satisfy your guilt feel, your feelings of guilt, where now the people around you recognize that and they develop a sense of entitlement to what you have earned. Okay, this is um, this is real. Like this is absolutely real. Um, yeah, Lowell said you want to tap in. You have the link. I posted the link on YouTube and Facebook. But it's not pinned on Facebook, but it is pinned on YouTube. If you go to YouTube, you just click that link. Let's have a conversation, man, because this is really important. The survivor's remorse is something that anyone who's had a modicum of success needs to learn how to deal with because success comes with its perils. If you are newly successful, what you will notice is that before you notice that you have changed, you'll notice that the people around you have changed. And there's no school to prepare you for dealing with people when you have been successful. You asked me, did I know that I was going to be an entrepreneur? Yes. I knew that I was going to be an entrepreneur before I knew what an entrepreneur was. And what I mean by that is that I knew that I could not work a 9 to 5 as an adult. Part of it was that when I did work a 9 to 5 as a young man, I wasn't even a man yet. 16, as I explained, like in one of the lives, I knew that I had a visceral allergic reaction to taking orders from people that I knew and who had proven over and over that they were my intellectual inferior. Not that I'm being arrogant, but I'm talking about people who couldn't think straight, people who couldn't put words together well, people who couldn't learn well, and because they were older or because they were working the job longer, they were people who had higher authority, and they were giving orders like, I have a problem of taking orders from incompetent people and people who have proven their incompetence. And you'll see that in most 9 to 5 environments, is that some people have gotten their supervisory status because of just being there longer, but not necessarily that they're brilliant. And that was something that never worked well for me. I also am someone who I love being a team player as long as the team focuses on something that I believe in. And so I'm never somebody who wants to do something just for money, right? If it was just for money, I'd be, I probably would have stayed as a lawyer. I just don't. I Money gives you freedom, but I'm not willing to do everything for money. I am willing to do anything for freedom, but I'm not willing to do anything for money. See, there's a difference. This is that because I know that if you have intelligence and you have zeal and you have discipline, you can always make money. But I'm not going to make money being subservient to people who are my intellectual inferiors. Actually makes me sick to my stomach, right? So for me, uh, I knew as a young person that I had to work for myself. I could not work for anyone else. And I knew that very early. And some of us are very fortunate to know about ourselves at a very early age. And what we find out is that the people who know about themselves from a very early age are usually the most successful people in life. And what do I mean by that? I'll give you a story. So here's story time. Pakistan. I'll give you a little history. Pakistan is a recent country. A lot of people don't know that. Pakistan is a country that was forged through the dripping of blood that formed rivers on streets. What do I mean by that? Pakistan is a breakaway country from India. What you call Pakistan today used to be part of India. But in India, they have a religion called Hinduism. And Hindu religion has a whole lot of problems with it because they believe in reincarnation, but they believe in the assignment of caste. They have a caste system, although they have some very interesting things about like Dharma and all that, but they have a hierarchy of, and that's one of my problems with many religions is that why I could never join religions is because if you're talking about God, I don't believe in the hierarchy of beings, or I don't believe that slavery can be justified. Right? If you look at Abrahamic religions, there's a justification of slavery. You go into Hinduism, there's a justification of a caste system where you have the Brahmins who are on top, and then you have the Dalits or the untouchables. And it's so bad that people who are untouchables and people who got designated as untouchables usually are dark-skinned people because they were the rulers of the society who got conquered by the Aryans from the north. These people were the Dravidians, blue-black people who got conquered by Aryans from the north. They say the voice is going in and out. So I'm gonna try to repeat what I was saying about India. And I have no idea why it's going in and out. Um, let's see if I can. Hold on one second. Maybe this will be better. Okay, it's fine. Let me. This is very important. All right. Can y'all hear me? Let me know if you can hear me now. Can you hear me now? Let me know if you can hear me now. Can you hear what I'm saying right now? Okay. I think I might have found out what the problem. Okay. Yeah, I might have found out. Okay, great. I had another headphone that was obstructing things. So let me explain to you the history of Pakistan and to explain to you the power of knowing who you are and who you want to be and supposed to be at an early age. So Pakistan, the moment that it starts getting choppy, just let me know, all right? And then we can start taking calls for people to, chop it up. Because I don't want this just to be about me. I want us to explore these ideas together. So Pakistan um, was basically a country formed for Indians who were Muslim, because Indians who were Muslim were treated badly by the majority who were Hindus. And literally, people walked from one side of India to the next from Pakistan. And during those walks that people had to do, people were slaughtered. There were many periods of slaughter of the Hindus towards the Muslims. The Muslims were a minority in India. And there were many, many times where there were Hindu massacres of Muslims, and to the point where the Muslims said, we need our own country. That is what formed Pakistan. And there was a march, and there were trains that over a couple millions of people died in the march for Pakistan. This is real talk, and there's books about it, and many people don't know it. But the Hindus were very arrogant and they were very violent. And like I said, they created a caste system. And that caste system relegated the light-skinned Brahmins, who were the Aryans from the north, who came in their what they call Euro-Indian disposition, to go ahead and take over India. Now remember that India, the mountain range of India is actually the Indus Kush Mountains. Remember, Indus Kush. Kush is Ethiopia. And it turns out that the colonizer and the person who actually conquered that piece of land was a pharaoh called Senwarset. And Senwarset, and this becomes very interesting. Senwarset was Kemetic pharaoh. At the time, Kemet, Kush, and all that were all like one nation. He explored, went and actually colonized that part. It's called the Indus Kush Mountains in India right now. And he was part of the house of Hathor, which is Heru, and also the house of Aset. So you had totems that you're part of. And when you would see Hathor or Heru, you would see a crown with cow horns on it that represents the fertility. You will see that crown. And so till this day, the Hindus don't even realize it, but the reason why the cow is sacred in India is because of Senwarset, and he was under the totem of a cow deity, as seen through the house of Heru or Hathor. And what happened was that when they came and conquered, they also absorbed a lot of the religion and a lot of the folk ways of the people who were there, which were dark-skinned black people that is known in history as the Dravidians, who are actually descendants of the Kushites, the empire of Kush. That's why when you see Ethiopians and you see Indians, you actually see a lot of similarities in the way they look, hair texture, and even their music. So listen to Indian music and listen to Ethiopian music, and you'll start to see a lot of similarities. Yeah, I have Ethiopian friends that pass for Indian. You know what I mean? So anyway, um, the and how you know the people who used to rule a society are the people who are presently at the bottom of a society because they got conquered, and there's a price to pay for losing a war. You become the bottom of that society. So the bottom of that society used to be the rulers of the society, right? When you lose a war, you become subjugated. So you can always know who used to always rule, who used to rule a certain area based on who are the worst treated people of that area. So, for instance, it's very easy to know who used to run the Americas once you find out about Indian reservations. How did they get on reservations? They got conquered. See, there's a price to pay for losing. That's what we're talking about. That's why I'm talking about winners and losers. What winners do and what losers do, and what the consequences are. And that's why you always have to have a winning framework for you, your family, your community, and your people. And if you do not engage in winning activity, everything else is a distraction that leads you towards losing. That's why I don't spend much time on anything but winning activities and winning conversations and understanding what winning is about. Because when you lose, it has implications on you, your children, their grandchildren, until someone comes along in your genetic line who breaks that cycle. This is why winning is very important in understanding what it takes to win. That's why I talk about manufacturing so much, because if you can't manufacture everything that you need, you'll be dependent on another group of people who will then be able to subjugate and conquer you. That's what we talked about the Opium Wars and why the Chinese decided to manufacture everything that they need and become the manufacturers for the world because they didn't have an adequate navy, and it caused them to lose the Opium Wars, which was actually the Tea Wars. So anyway, let's get back to Pakistan. So in India, there was a problem that the Muslims were having with the Hindus. So they got their own nation through blood. I'm talking about millions of people died to form Pakistan on that walk. It's like you had the Trail of Tears in America for Native Americans. Well, they had a trail of blood to form Pakistan. The Pakistanis have never forgotten, never will forget their treatment when they were part of India. And till this day, Pakistan and India are sworn enemies. They do not get along, and they will not get along because literally you've got people whose grandparents were slaughtered by Indian Hindus, and they will never forget it. And of course, Muslims have a certain disposition in the world as well. So the fact that that happened to them, they believe in Allah, and their Prophet Muhammad was actually also a wartime general. They have their own ideas about how they were treated, and they actually feel a little bit of disgrace about their story in India, and they have a never again narrative as well, just like the Jews have, and just like the Africans have as well. Now, um, Pakistan is formed, and there are two young boys who grow up in the newly formed Pakistan. Let's call them Boy A and Boy B. Boy A and Boy B, they grow up together. Boy A is friends with Boy B, and Boy B happens to be a child prodigy. This is a real story, by the way. Boy B happens to be very good in mathematics and science as a child. He gets all types of awards. He's known as a prodigy in the field of math and science. He becomes actually quite a celebrity and somebody who the country points to as a future big person in the country. I'm talking about the boy's like 10 years old, 11, 12, and he's doing all types of, physics, and he's understanding like complicated mathematical formulas and what have you. He's just like a celebrity genius as a boy. His friend Boy A is very gregarious. He's smart too, but he's not a genius. But he keeps telling Boy B that his fate from 10 years old is to become one day the president of Pakistan. At 10 years old, these two boys are having these conversations. Boy B doesn't know what he wants to be. He just knows that he's real good at math and science. But his friend keeps telling him, I'm going to be president of this country. It's just a dream I had. Not like a dream, like it's a wish. Like he would have these premonitions when he would sleep that he was going to be a man of big affairs and he was going to run Pakistan. Well, it turns out as they become adults, Boy B ends up getting scholarships to study physics at Oxford University, England. Boy A starts and continues his life path and he's doing his thing. And one day, Boy A becomes the president of Pakistan. When he becomes the president of Pakistan, he knows that they are on the border with their eternal blood enemy, India. They have not forgotten the slaughter that took place in the way that the Hindus treated them. And they know that they need to have defense against their mortal blood enemies, the Hindus of India. It turns out that as he becomes president of Pakistan, as he prophesized or always felt that he would become, and when you feel like you're going to be something, a lot of times it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy because that's all your mind is on and you just naturally start going towards it. And do not think that like when Jewish people are told that they're the chosen people and they're taught this when they go to Saturday school, Sunday school, whatever they do for their alternative education, and they're taught that they're the chosen people. Don't think it doesn't affect their confidence as to why they are the leaders of many, many important areas of life activity. Because I went to school with them. Most of my professors were Jewish. The biggest percentage of Nobel Prize winners in science are Jewish. Some of the top scientists in world history are Jewish. Einstein and all, Oppenheimer, all these guys, these were Jewish kids. And it is not a mistake that a child who is taught by his parents and his community that they are the chosen people of God start behaving and performing that way. Take note of that. Remember about being winners, what winners do, and the narratives that winners have. And it gives you a great confidence when you teach your people and your children that they are the chosen people of God. The Japanese feel the same way about themselves as well. That's why if you look at the Japanese flag, it's a white flag with a red dot. You know what that red dot is? The red dot is the rising sun. Because the Japanese are taught and they believe that their land is the land of the rising sun because they believe the sun rises first in Japan. This is what they believe. But guess what? They're right. You know why they're right? Because the sun rises first wherever you are. You know what I'm saying? Wherever you are, the sun rises first. And so the Japanese believe that the sun rises first in Japan and it's the land of the rising. So we can get Japanese culture. I can talk about Japanese culture all day. These are very serious people. And the narratives that they have about themselves, they don't let people proselytize. You can't go to Japan and proselytize Christianity. You can't open churches in Japan like that. They believe in themselves. They don't believe in an import economy. Like, whereas you go to other countries and they believe that everything foreign is better. Those of us from Africa, those of us from the Caribbean know that, like the wealthy people, they all want imports. And then that makes the people who are the so-called underclass can develop taste, interests, and values that are outside of their own people. The Japanese feel like if it's not Japanese, it's not good enough. Whereas other people who don't believe in themselves believe that it's the black man's ice, it's not as good as the white man's ice. See what happens? And why having a psychology around winning is important because of defeatism. You've been defeated for long, you develop this odor that you get used to. You get used to that odor of losing. And so it is for an individual, so it is for countries. That's why you have some countries want everything that is foreign, and then there's other countries that feels like everything that's foreign is inferior. That's how the Japanese feel because of the way that they've been acculturated and trained to believe that they are the land of the rising sun. But they are right. They are the land of the rising sun because the sun rises first in Japan if you're Japanese and you're in Japan. Wherever you are, the sun rises first. Back to Pakistan. This young boy who's been telling everybody that he is going to be the president of Pakistan actually becomes the president of Pakistan. But he's got a problem. He's got a vicious neighbor that they have a blood feud with. It turns out that the young boy who becomes the president, calls his friend Boy A. I forget which one was Boy A, Boy B, but you get the point. I forget which one I assigned what. Let's just say I assigned Boy A to be the genius, right? Well, that Boy A gets his PhD in nuclear physics. He gets his PhD in nuclear physics, and his best friend is the president of Pakistan. Guess what happens? They start getting on the phone. They start meeting and talking like, yo, I'm the president of Pakistan. We got a problem here. We got these Hindus that, they enjoy killing us. That's why we have to form our country. And we need like the great equalizer. So you, as my brethren, and I know you love me because we're homies. You know what I'm saying? My family's your family. I used to always send you things when you were a struggling student and all that. He said, listen, you ain't gotta get into all that. You ain't gotta get into all that. Listen, I'm over here in England and I'm part of their nuclear program. I'm their top scientist in their nuclear program. I know what you need. I got the blueprints to the nuclear reactors, the fission reactors, the centrifugal equipment. I got all of that. I got the blueprints to all of that. It's on and popping. I'm about to smuggle all of this and we're going to give it to Pakistan and we're going to be somebody. He said, bet. Guess what happened? Boy A, who's now man A, nuclear physicist, scientist, comes to Pakistan and he comes bearing gifts. You understand what I'm saying? He comes bearing gifts. They sit down, they greet. How was your family? Oh, my family's good. How's your family? Oh, family's good. How's your mother? I haven't seen her in a long time. I've been in London. Oh, she's good. You know, she's your aunt. You know, we're brothers. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay. Let's get to the business. What you got for me? You know what I got? Here's all the blueprints. Yeah? True to size? Yeah. How does this work? Oh, you just need uranium, plutonium. You can set this up for us? Can I set this up for you? I'm the one setting it up for the people in England. They're using me to be a world power. Remember, we used to be part of India. We were colonized by these people. Yeah, we got problems with the Indians, but remember, we got problems with these people too. We got problems with the British too. And they basically colonized our grandparents just like they colonized, you know what I'm saying? Because we used to be part of India. So yeah, you're right. I got no love for them. They're using me. I'm using them. We need to build up Pakistan. You think I want to be in London? You think I want to be in London all the time? I miss chana masala. I miss my mango lassi. I got to be in England eating Cornish hen. Boy B, who's the president, what's Cornish hen? He says, Boy A says to him, thank God you don't have to know. He said, thank God you don't have to know what Cornish hen is. Let's get back to this nuclear program. And they start the nuclear program of Pakistan together. Those two young boys grew up with nothing but dreams and visions because they knew that they were special. And their life path followed that feeling that they had that was more than certainly buttressed with wins along the way that developed their self-esteem, their sense of identity, their sense of brotherhood, their sense of group belief, their sense of loyalty, their sense of patriotism, their sense of history, and they got it done. Today, Pakistan is one of the few nuclear powers on planet Earth next to India. And they never had problems with India afterward. They may have war of words, but there is no slaughters of millions of people because they have a deterrent, and so does India. But the way that they got their nuclear power situation together was based on two young boys who grew up together who had a sense of being winners. This is very important. What we start finding out is that the people who were winners always had a sense. They always had a sense. When you start, see, I'm a person who I watch biographies. I read biographies a lot of great people. Not necessarily good people all the time, but people who made a mark in this world. Because you got to think, billions of people have lived, but only a few thousand have been recorded. Only a few thousand people have made history. And if you want to be a great person, you need to study people who've also been great people and how they did what they did. So I've always been obsessed with studying great people, and that's why I tend to know these stories because I'm fascinated with unicorns, I'm fascinated with people who stood out amongst people. You understand? So that's an answering your question, Lowell. I wanted to give you a story so you can understand why it's very important from a young age to know who you want to be and who you're going to be, and to follow that path and let it become a self-fulfilling prophecy. You and you'll find this trait amongst great people. You know what I'm saying? People who want to call in, people who got questions, if you've got any commentary, this would be a great time to do that. We can chop it up. Hopefully, a lot of what I've been saying and what I've been sharing with you all today has been enlightening. I'd like to give thanks to people. Um, Thank Cash App. I don't do this for the money, but I also believe in reciprocity. I'm giving you something that's valuable. If you want to share that energy back, that's great. For the last couple um, days and lives, we've been getting Cash Apps of close to about $1,000 each session. We got Cash Apps of around close to 1,000 yesterday, 1,000 on Monday. And what we use the Cash Apps for is to support the time of what we're doing and also to use that money to build factories in Africa. Because I'm like that. I'm like those two places in Pakistan. We did not forget about our homeland. and we know what we need to do to win. And it's going to require some types of resources, togetherness, moving in one accord, using our intellectual strength, and focusing on winning and what it takes to win, and studying what other countries have done for winning. You understand what I'm saying? Like winning is a science, y'all. So, for instance, um, like if you run track and field, like there's a science to running fast. The coaches know, like there's machines, there's ways that they track your hormones and the vitamin content, the minerals in your blood, and certain exercises you do. There's a science to running fast. There's also a science to winning. There's a science to winning as a nation. It's been done over and over and over again. It's just that with us, this is not something that is discussed. Like we discuss everything but winning. We debate everything but winning, like as a people and as individuals. These are the conversations. Like how many lives are going on right now on YouTube where people are discussing the science of actual winning? Not necessarily the science of making money, but you see, once you understand the science of winning, money becomes a byproduct. Because if you apply that winning attitude to money, you win. If you apply the winning attitude to personal freedom, you win. If you apply the winning attitude and the concepts of winning, not just the state of mind, but the steps involved in winning, knowing it's going to take discipline, knowing that you're going to have to outwork everyone around you, because why would you win if you're doing the same effort as everyone else? Winning, first place means that you stood out amongst everyone. That means you did better than everyone else. So if you want to do better than everyone else, which is called winning, you're going to have to do things different than everyone else. I mean, of course, there's certain people who are born with certain natural talents, but at some point, those natural talents become a wash because you start meeting other people with those same natural talents. Now, like everyone can dunk a basketball in the NBA. You know what I mean? So how are you going to win this game when everyone else can dunk? What can you do different? You're going to have to stand out, right? You're no longer impressive in high school where you're the only one who can dunk. You understand what I'm saying? So, the sister Ami, why you got some questions? Why don't you come live? You want to come on? Let me know if you want to come on so we can actually go back and forth and actually have a conversation. I can answer your questions if you're more comfortable just writing the questions and I can read it, because you're on YouTube and some people on Facebook and Twitter can't see your question. But if you come on live, we can talk. So let me know if you want to come on live, Ami. Sounds like you have a lot to say. I think that people would benefit from your questions and any back and forth that we may have, like what we did yesterday with brothers who came on. So let me know if you want to come on live. We'll give you a few seconds because I know this is a little bit few seconds delayed. She asks, what's the deal when you have that sense of being purpose to do something great and the mundane doesn't suit you, but you just can't put your finger? Okay, how do we use Facebook Live to talk? Zakia, I'm going to um, give you the link where you can call in because Facebook does not allow me to pin the link. So I'm about to reply to you right now. Replying to Zakia. I'm going to put that in there for you and just call and let's chop it up. It'd be a pleasure to meet you anyway, Zakia. I know that you ordered mangoes last mango season. Love to meet the people who've done business with you just so we can hail each other up. So I just put it there for you, Zakia. Okay. Um, Andy says my house is quiet right now. I don't know what that means. Does that mean you want to call it or you can't call it because it's quiet? don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. And Zakia, I've given you the link, and Lowell, you said you're gonna call in. Feel free to call in. Anybody, feel free to call in. Sister G, big up. Um, Let me read Ami's statement to everybody because she's on YouTube, so those on Facebook and Twitter can't statement. Ami says, "What's the deal when you have that sense of being purpose to do something great in the mundane? You just can't put your finger on exactly what that thing, what it looks and feels like." Okay, that's a great question. So, all right, she says she can't be camera ready. She's not camera ready right now. A lot of sisters do that. A lot of sisters feel like they got to look their best on screen. I feel, sisters wouldn't be sisters if they didn't feel that way. It's all good. But if you want to call and don't come on screen and just use an avatar, you can do that as well. And just, hopefully in the future you will come so that what happens is that if I'm ever in an airport, if we see each other, I would know who you are, or in your town, and we see each other, we just don't walk right past each other, right past you. I can, give you a hug. Because it's important for us to close the gap from digital social media friends to actually real human friends, right? That's very important, or else we fall into the pitfalls of industrial society. And that's what's going on in Japan right now, where people prefer avatar relationships with virtual characters as opposed to real people, and that's the like romantic relationships that Japanese kids are having now. The boys and the girls are not dating each other. Um, they're actually preferring to date machine entities, and it's leading to demographic collapse in Japan. So we want to avoid uh, Gail call. So let me answer your question. So one of the things in life, and one of the biggest gifts in life, is to know your purpose, and the bigger gift is to know your purpose early. So um, there are some of us who don't know our purpose yet. And what I would say is that would require deep inventory of yourself. And one of the ways that you know about yourself is you know what has made you happy. You're happy. See, like Lowell was talking earlier, he's a mechanic. Before Lowell was a mechanic, he used to love fixing cars before he was doing this profession. I asked him why. He said he didn't know. It just made him happy. It turned him on. It got his juices flowing. He turned that into a business, and that's his purpose. Now he's passionate about it. What you've got to do, Ami, you got to sit in your quiet place. You need to make a list. You need to be methodical about this. This is science to being happy. You need to make a list of those things that are indispensable to your happiness. Usually those things that don't necessarily require other people assisting with you, like, oh, I'm happy, things that require other people. But once you find out the things that make, like I have a list of things that make me happy, and I made that many years. Mangoes was on my list. I love eating mangoes. So one of my dreams was to have a mango farm because it's on my indispensable list of happiness, and I don't want to live in a country that I can't get mangoes. Like I actually would be not happy if mangoes didn't exist. And I remember a preacher one day said to me, they were trying to proselytize me like Joe. They said, heaven, you don't want to go to heaven? I said, yeah, tell me about heaven. And he said, well, heaven is the land of milk and honey. Milk and honey there? I said, yeah, yeah, yeah. And I said, okay, are mangoes in heaven? I said, what? I said, are mangoes in heaven? Is there mangoes in heaven? And he said, I don't know. I said, well, come back and talk to me when you can tell me mangoes are in heaven. You know what I'm saying? then I'll be interested because I don't drink milk and I'm not a big fan of honey. I like mangoes. So for me, my definition of heaven is a place with mangoes. So if what you're telling me is heaven, but it doesn't have mangoes, you can't tell me that's heaven. I'll be miserable there. You understand what I'm saying? This is the type of conversations I have with people. So because I have that type of disposition, I have to put together a mango farm because it's on my list of indispensable things that make me happy. So once you find those indispensable things to make you happy, just like Lowell found that fixing cars just for whatever reason made him happy. Well, you hunker down on that, you make sure that's part of your life and you engage in that and you find out a way to monetize that. Because what we find is that we spend most of our time at work. Like the people we spend most of our time with is not even our family members, it's our work, uh, people we work with, fellow employees. We spend more time with them than any other human beings. Say you spend 8 hours, you spend 8 hours at work, you got 8 hours to do other things, and you have with your family members all that 8 hours that you have free. So you're spending more time with people who are strangers because you are all on an economic pursuit than you are with the people who you actually want to be with. So what that means is economic pursuits actually take up most of human beings' existence. So now, if you can marry your economic pursuits with that which makes you indispensably happy, you will be. Um, I've been fortunate. All of my economic pursuits are based on things that make me indispensably happy. And if you can organize your life that way, you will be happy on purpose. And most people are happy by accident. Something will happen to them today that makes them happy, but then tomorrow they're back to baseline because it's accidental happiness. Most human beings, particularly in industrial society, are happy accidentally and ephemerally based on short bursts of things that make them happy. But because they don't even know themselves well enough to know what really makes them happy so that they can reverse engineer happiness. So that's my answer to you, is that you have to get a list of things that make you happy. Make sure you engage in those things every single day, at least two or three of them. And then if you can monetize, now you're spending most of your time doing things that make you happy and also solve your problem of having cash flow to pay bills and make sure that you have a house and all those types of things, right? You can marry those two things together, you become a very unique human being who's solved that problem you have not been able to solve with most people who have 9 to 5 are miserable. Okay? All right. We got some people called in. Kia, well, pick up, put the headphone on. I can hear y'all. Okay. Can y'all hear me?
Yes, sir.
What's going on? It's a little choppy. Can you? I'm not sure if you can hear me. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
You got
I'm
an
not sure
echo.
if you're able to hear
You
me.
got
Let
an
me know if you
echo.
can hear me.
I might have an echo because I'm in a garage.
Yeah, hold on a second. There's an echo going on, Zakia. Let me see if I mute you. Okay. I don't hear the muting. Okay, I don't hear the echo anymore. Let me unmute you. Okay, that's kind of weird. Okay, I know what I need to do. Let's see.
Testing.
All right, Zakia. Let's see. Yeah. All right.
Testing.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5, 4, 3, 2,
All right,
1.
let's do this. You know what to do.
Testing.
I'm going to change the settings and use the
Okay.
microphone here. All right. Perhaps that's better. Okay. I think it stopped.
Testing. Testing.
Yes, I can hear you, Zakia. Can you all hear me?
Yes. Perfectly clear.
Yes, I know what happened on my side. I had the Facebook and the YouTube playing. All right, we good now. Yeah, we
Awesome.
should be good now. And you can hear me fine?
Yes, sir. Perfectly
Okay.
clear.
All right. Holler at me. What you got?
First, my mother would like to express condolences for Dr. Mensa.
Okay.
She asked me to deliver that message. Um,
Yes, I met him in Ghana when I was there recently. Yeah. So yeah, thank you for
I-
that.
yes, I showed her the picture of yourself and Dr. Mensa, and she was impressed by that.
Okay.
Um, I is so. Let me just ask because I just logged in. I came from the library. I had some studying to do. Um, is this the question answer phase? Can we ask
Yes.
anything?
Yes,
Okay,
absolutely.
beautiful. So I've had several ideas over the years that enter my mind here and there, and usually I'll forget about them or not write them down because it just occurs relatively often. Number one. Number two, I am not an engineer, nor do I have any engineering background or education. Those things just interest me.
Hmm.
So, for example, um, maybe about 5 or 6 years ago or more, I think Elon Musk just introduced the idea regarding being able the capability to have Wi-Fi anywhere.
Hmm.
Prior to that, um, actually a couple of years prior, I was I had ideas and images in my mind on how people could achieve that. I would hear about people traveling to different locations, different countries, and they have no Wi-Fi. Was a lot of their issue, and so um, I had an idea and a design idea on how to at least get a few bars to connect for your phones or devices or whatever the case is. Uh, I would describe them, but I'm not sure that I could describe it in a manner that is understandable to everyone listening. But
No, I mean, give it a try. Give it a try.
uh, well, it involves robotics
Okay.
and drone technology.
Robotics
Um,
and drone technology.
yeah, so
Okay.
I'm not sure how intricate the pieces for an antenna to receive Wi-Fi Wi-Fi waves, how involved that is. But I was thinking if you take like you could take a robotic, I don't know, spider, let's say, with the ability to grip different surfaces, plant a antenna and an antenna and a device or something that gathers or can um, compound waves, energy waves, EMF, radio, whatever, um, compound those waves onto the surface of the receiver. You could put that. You could put the spider, quote unquote, robotic spider on a tree or the side of a building or whatever, have it climb to the highest location and start detecting or looking for to receive those waves or those that information, or it can engage its drone capability and just fly over to the nearest location with that capability that's not too far from you, the receiving end or the device, and not too far from the satellite or wherever it's compounding those receiver the radio waves that it has to receive in order to actually get a Wi-Fi signal or connection or something to that effect. I'm pretty sure it would have to have a system or a network that can do that. Um, I don't know. It's just an idea,
Okay.
similar to the military uses satellite radios, and they can set up they set it up. They could set up an entire communication system in like the middle of the desert
Mm.
and information and distribute information as needed in emergency situations. So I'm pretty sure we could, there could be drone and robotics technology to be developed to encompass that.
Yeah, I think the way that it would work and the way that it has been working, like we talk about the military doing those types of things, and um, I think it'd be instructive to look at what Elon Musk has did with Starlink, right? And essentially, you're going to need some type of satellite, and so something that has a wide range and covers a wide range. That's why you have like a cell phone tower that serves like as a satellite. Usually you want to have those towers on like mountains, right? So that it's overlooking a wide range of area. That beams the signal, and then you have your receivers, and you might have what you call repeaters. So I think what you're talking about is having repeaters that would be closer to people. And you should look at, if you can, look at helium mobile technology. I would ask you to look at that, because what they're using blockchain, and they're using people having devices in their house that they're able to get. They basically do mining, and they have this device that does mining that also emits the frequencies while it's mining. So you're incentivized to keep it on because you're getting mining, but it emits these the internet technology, or also the mobile technology for people to connect to phones, and it works very well. As a matter of fact, I I stopped using AT&T and T, and I use Helium Mobile now, and I pay $5 a month for my phone as opposed to what I was paying for AT&T. And they're using concepts similar to yours, where you can actually put the Helium Mobile receiver outside of your house with its own antenna. And so what you're saying is you would use maybe a drone or some type of robotic insect to be like up on a tree to be able to emit the frequencies for people to connect to. Is that what you're saying?
Uh, yes and no. So I've heard of helium in that technology a few years back.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I'm more leaning on the side of a portable system because usually when people are like in remote areas,
Mm-hmm.
there ain't no tree and there ain't no buildings.
Okay.
But I'm trying to think of a way uh, that would be able to enhance or concentrate the waves enough so that if you needed an emergency signal to call for help or whatever the case is, you could get one because I mean, of course, you would have to. I'm thinking it could borrow or use um, satellites and equipment that's closer that that doesn't belong to you. and somehow bounce those waves off of that equipment to compound it or concentrate it so that you could emergently use it to uh, get a signal and do something. But I'm
Have you talked to engineers who are involved in internet
I
technology?
I don't talk to anybody.
No, you should. You should, and just run the idea by and see how feasible it is.
Yo, Heru. She needs to
Yeah,
speak to. She needs to speak to Eccles, man, to Ken Eccles.
yeah. I mean, I have, you know, I have a nice Rolodex of some serious engineers. So if you are actually really interested in that, I can get you in touch with some people you can bounce the idea off of. Because there's no point to have ideas and you can't discuss it with people who like can really make it happen, or at least critique the idea, or take it to the next level.
Well aware.
Hmm.
I had ideas about different things all the time, and I don't. I'm not in contact with, or I don't know engineers or
Mhm.
systems.
Would you like to be in contact with them?
For real.
Ah,
What I'm saying is, I can get you in contact with the proper people to speak with about this. Did she freeze up?
And she probably froze up. But you know what? I wonder if she saw the live last night. She probably didn't see the live last night. If she did, should have been very excited about what she was talking about right now.
Yeah. It seems like she froze up.
I had
Um,
Nico watching the live, and he couldn't believe what was being said. He says, "Yo, y'all talking heavy." I was like, I sent him the link last night, but he didn't see it. But yeah, this is very, and she's well informed herself. Seems like she's in the engineering field, correct?
I don't know. She said she doesn't talk to. I mean, we have to ask her. We'll see when she comes back on. But it seems like her internet froze up. But we can chalk it up in the meantime, man. So what do you think about the conversation today?
I already made phone calls to see. I'm waiting for my boy to contact me back. Like I said, he sells a lot of parts. He makes a killing selling parts.
Oh no, this was
So,
the conversation from yesterday. I was talking about the conversation today about winning.
oh my God, you didn't see all the comments I was making, bro? It's like you spitting fire, bro. Um, there
Like
was something you said,
what resonated with you?
various things. One of the few things that you said
Okay, it
as
looks like
well
you're
that you know
freezing.
that you could not work
Your
a
your
certain.
your
Hello.
internet was freezing up for a second.
Oh my bad.
And Zakia,
You
your
were saying,
internet froze up. I didn't kick you out of the chat. It just froze up. So if you want to call back in, call back in. Go ahead, Lowell.
no doubt. So when you stated that, there are individuals who can who can work in an environment where they have to be told what to do, and like you, I could not. That didn't resonate well with me. At the same time, I was in an environment where I saw my father work for himself after working for someone for a while, and he decided to go work for himself. My sister did. Almost everyone in my family is an entrepreneur. So we have seen entrepreneurship and feel the need to I guess you could say indulge in it, so to speak, because we see the successes of it, as opposed to going somewhere every single day and someone determines your fate when you can determine your own fate. Um, and that's why I asked, based on what you were telling me, based on what you were saying in this log, it sounds like you knew from the very gate that this is not something that you knew from the very beginning. You had to work for yourself. It's not something that you can do specifically. You couldn't work for anybody without there being pretty much
Yeah,
you had to work for yourself, pretty much.
yeah. You know what I could tell you, Lowell? I think it also has to do with affirmation from older people when you're young as well. So
Yes.
before you get into that, yeah, Zakia, you can feel free to call back in. I don't know what happened. Your video froze up and then you dropped out. But yeah, if you want contacts of some engineers, you can run your ideas by. No problem. I'll send them to you through Facebook. I'll inbox it to you. I have a couple people in mind that you can talk to. All right. Now, and there's a brother actually on right now who's into a lot of internet and computer technology, brother Jason Thigpen. If Jason wants to call up and chime in, that's fine as well. And if this is something that, Jason can explore with you, I'll give you his link as well. As a very good brother that I know, who's into technology and internet and computers and all that. So he even commented on YouTube about what you were talking about. So you definitely have some people you can talk to. We'll make sure that happens. But Jason, if you want to call in, feel free to call in, man. But yeah, Lowell. So I think what happened to me when I was a kid. So I was speaking at a very early age, and I was reading at a very early age. And so when I was in preschool and kindergarten, I had teachers who kind of let me know in some way that I was different. I'll never forget this. And I went to a place in Chicago on 32nd Street. It was called Margot's Nursery School. And I had just started learning English, and I got pretty good at English because when I came to America, all I spoke was Twi. And I had to learn English, and kids used to make fun of me because I didn't speak English. But then I got the hang of it. Yeah, I got the hang of it and spoke English and learned and started doing well in school. And I'll never forget this. And it always stuck with me that the owner of the place, her name was Margot. And Margot told my mother, like I graduated and it was time to go to kindergarten or something like that. And Margot said, now, like I said, man, like if you start with these affirmations with kids, you don't ever know where it goes. That's why it's important to have like small wins early. Absolutely. So Margot said to my mother, and I was standing there, is that like, I love your son. He's brilliant. I can't wait to see what and who he becomes when he grows up. Wow. I remember that. And I feel like that's been kind of like almost like my
that's something you were hanging on
to. Yeah. Yeah. And I remember I was 4 years old when she said that. I was 4. I remember that.
I was 20 when I heard that.
Yes, when I heard that, she said that to my mother. She said it in front of me. I never knew that would stick with me for the rest of my life, but it's been my guiding light as to my approach to myself and my relationship with the world, that I always felt like I was supposed to do something special. And I don't think that if Margot didn't say that, I would have felt that so early. So sometimes adults can say things that will affect you. Like I didn't know that, like I never agreed that someone could say something that could affect you negatively, but it must be true if someone can say things that can affect you positively, because I never believed negative like critique or whatever. Like I think because my personality had developed to the point where I got enough, as Jamaicans will say, forwards. You know what I mean? Like as a child, where adults kind of like they bigged me up as a kid who was intelligent. So, and also a kid who was supposed to do something with his life. So I've always felt, and because I do these inventories of myself in my life and people around me. And when I start to really do a real assessment of like who I am, why I behave the way I behave, and why I do the things that I do, I trace it back to some of those moments, man. And I am allowed to do that when I start reading the books of people who were great, because I'm trying to find out what made them great. And you start hearing these stories over and over that a lot of times they had self-confidence very early. Even the ones who failed out of school, like Einstein, they believed in themselves. Yeah, and Einstein failed out of school, but they still believed in themselves. And there is something to be said for giving a child confidence and also having strings of successes early in life. Yeah. You got to have them early in life. So you said you didn't hear that till you were 20?
Yeah, when I had a well, I've heard it from my parents, which are the first people who will have extreme influence on you. But I remember I was attending at the time Broward Community College, now called Broward College, and I had a professor. I can't remember his name. Um, it'll come to me. But he said, every time in class, I would always have to speak to him after hours. And after class, he would say to me, "What are you doing here?" I said, "Excuse me, I'm in school." He would say, "You belong in a university, not no college like this. You need to be Dr. Branca, Italian dude." And when he told me that, I was like, "I belong in university." He says, "This place is too small for you. You need to be in a university, not with the way that you think." And that always stuck with me till this very day. And plus, first of all, he was Caucasian, so for someone European to tell me they see value in me was very weird. The only people who saw value in me were people who look like me, or maybe a few Latin people, but pretty much people of color, or people that have melanin, and African people that would be the only ones who would see value in me. So when he stated that, it shocked me, and it always made me feel like maybe I am above average. I didn't want to think like that because it would seem a little bit egotistical or arrogant. But I found that my way of thinking was different than some others. Um, but I did feel like I was destined for greater things. One time I ran into someone at the post office. He saw me in my work van, and he saw me all dressed up in blue collar uniform. He says, "I used to work with you at American Express." And I looked at his face. I remember him. He says, "Yeah." He says, "Man, I don't know. I always knew he's gonna do something, man. I knew he's knew. What you do? You fix cars now?" I was like, "Yeah." And he says, "Man, I knew you wasn't regular." And so things like that confirmed for me what the individual said, what my parents had said to me as a child. So it gives me perspective.
Yeah, and the really interesting thing, Lowell, is that, and I don't know how this works, but I'm never ever somebody who also needed like praise. Like I
Absolutely.
didn't need it. I never needed like adulation, or maybe I got enough of it early that I didn't need any more. Like I was never someone who needed, like I never needed my parents to come watch me play sports, or I never needed, like I was never one of that person that who needed like praise, public praise, or people to say you did a great job, or I never needed that. But when I look back in my life though, I got that praise very early at like 4 or 5 years old. And then it took off from there. You get what I'm saying? It just became clear to me that I never felt like I didn't want to squander this life. That's one thing that was very important to me, not to
Absolutely.
squander this life, that I feel like I was given a life and that I can't squander it. That's why I never found myself in like precarious situations, because I felt like I had something to live for. See, that's one of the things too, is that you can't spend time around people who don't have much to live for. You understand what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Like
Taps your energy.
a lot of us have spent time around people who don't necessarily have much to live for. So I always felt like I had something to live for. So it never got me into like these kind of risky, precarious situations, because I've always felt like there's something I'm supposed to accomplish. And I didn't know what it was, but I just felt like there's an inkling of there's something great I'm supposed to do. And I think
Facts.
that if you can inculcate that into children very
Love
early,
that word. I love that word, inculcate. That's fire.
yeah,
That's one of my favorite words.
you have to inculcate that to children very early. I think that it'll have profound effects. And that's why I told the story of the boy in Pakistan. There's something or someone gave him the impression that he was supposed to be someone great, to the point where he was
Hmm.
supposed to be president of this country. And then you can imagine the stories that he was hearing based on the bloodshed that was
On the streets,
poured,
that
that was
yeah,
poured
that
to
was
make that country possible. So he's hearing these stories and he's feeling like, I want to be a hero. I want to protect this country because I'm hearing these stories. And from a very early age, he's like, I want to be the president because I want to basically carry this burden on my back. These
you know
are
it's
the type of people that I kind of relate with,
it's
because
funny you mentioned that.
all great people feel a sense of responsibility.
Yeah, and they feel the need to give as well. I notice those who are very, very successful, they are not at all satisfied if what they're doing does not encompass serving other human beings, or it has to play a role in helping humanity, so to speak. Um, those when they engage in behavior that's like selfish, um, it's never really to their benefit. It's usually to the detriment of themselves. So and also, I was going to make another point, but it just left my mind. It'll come to me. But I agree with what you said. There was another point you were saying earlier about how everyone who like you said, it says what why are we addicted to winning? You were saying something about the drive that a human being has that's pushing them in that direction. What's making them go, and it separates them from everybody else. Like a lot of when you were describing, I felt you were talking about like you were exhibiting character traits that I exhibit. So I remember one day we were talking, and you said, like you tried. I think you called me, and I said, "Listen, I got to call you back." You was like, "Yo, you're the hardest working man I know besides myself." And some of the character traits you mentioned, constantly have to work. The degree and drive that you have, you didn't really have that in like you have the drive to go to work and do certain things, but when it's your own business or when it's something that you're doing, there's a certain kind of drive that you have. And those people who have the working mentality, they don't have that drive. But those who have the mentality that I have to get it, um, something is pushing them to go to the nth degree to say, I'm not going to deal with society. I'm going to go my own route and try to make a living. And they're going to find a way to do it. That's also not going to give them shame, or it won't bring them shame. It won't make them uncomfortable. There are some people who go to work every single day and they are stressed out. When I'm at the shop, and me and my comrades, we're working, but we're engaging with each other at the same time. We're having dialogue. And every now and then somebody say like, man, I used to work at a dealership. I would never want to work in a dealership again because it's not the same kind of environment. Because I'm doing what I love, but I'm so also surrounded by people who also doing what they love, doing what they love. And the two owners, we have similar ways of thinking. We have meetings, and when we have the meetings, we realize that our way of thinking is the same as opposed to those um, who are employees. So those things that you mentioned, they resonate me very well, and those character traits that you mentioned, it shows why people are addicted to winning. And I love the title too. Why we are addicted to winning. That's fire, bro. Everything you say is a bar, bro. Bars.
Yeah, man. Yeah, give thanks. Yeah, winning is an addiction,
Hmm.
and if you haven't won in a while, you don't understand it. But there is nothing more. There's no drug that's more addictive or fulfilling than creating something out of nothing and doing it successfully. And
And
that's why you find like serial entrepreneurs. They're not chasing money, they're chasing that feeling of having an idea for a business. And the reason why they get into entrepreneurship is because doing business is one of the only ways that you can actually quantify success, because the way that you keep score is really through the tabulation of money. So it's like it actually the money that you're making makes you understand how productive that you've been in fulfilling your vision. And so that's why a lot of people will gravitate towards entrepreneurship, that it's not anything based on opinion. It's like, if I'm successful at this, then I'm selling a lot of it. And forget the money for the money's sake. It's just for the sake of, I brought this thing to fruition and now it's in everybody's house. And it started with just my
mm,
idea. You understand what I'm saying? That's addictive that you can do that. But like,
fact.
imagine the feeling of a musician who comes up with a song in their mind, doesn't record it, then records it, listens to it back, and a year later, that song is playing on the radio for everyone to listen to, and you even hear it coming out of people's cars and houses. Do you understand how addictive that must be for that creator? Forget the
It's funny.
money aspect. It's just the money is a way to keep score. But the fact that you're able to engage in creativity from your mind into creating something into flesh, into fruition, there's nothing more powerful than that, particularly when other people gravitate towards it. And then you know that if you never existed, this item or this thing would never be a part of people's lives. And imagine if it's actually improving their quality of life. How good that must make you feel as a creator. And I think that's why certain people get into entrepreneurship, because you can't get that feeling working for someone else.
But you do get that feeling as a parent. As a parent, you have the idea. You would know. I'm not a parent, but the child is, there's no physical manifestation of the child, but the child is a physical manifestation. You yourself are a product of thoughts that your parents had, and you now, when you know, when your loved ones and your parents see the results of the work that you put in, and they realize, well, this is the work I put in to raise this child, and my child is
Right.
this, and other people like when I had the fire, when I was in the hospital, I was getting visitors every day. One day, when my father was there, that just happens to be the day I had the most visitors, all races of people. So my father, you know my pop, so he's like, "Oh, really? The white people, the Asian, everybody come see you." So when that happens, he's wondering what, I know I raised my son, but he has all these different people trying to come to see him. He felt proud. And when you do that in a business as well, I heard someone say that when you're in school, your report card is the measure of your success. When you're an adult, the amount of money you make, that's the yardstick by which they measure your success in business. So if you're successful in business, that means you have a report card that everybody wants to look at. If not, anybody looking at your report card C's, D's, and F's, that's average or less. No one's trying to see that. I used to have those C, D's, and F's, so I know the feeling.
Right, right, right. The sister Zakia came back.
I think her mic is on mute, so maybe she's
Yeah,
occupied.
yeah. I don't know if she wants to come in. I know she didn't want to interrupt the conversation, but free to chime in, Zakia.
Mm-hmm. She had some vibrations she was dealing with. Absolutely.
Yeah, my
Um,
the reason for my idea. No internet, no good internet connection.
nah,
Mm,
Um,
you fine, you good?
I appreciate the time to share my idea, and I appreciate everything that you do, Dr. Haru. I appreciate that so much. Um, and I am a bit tongue tied at the moment, so I'm gonna step off. I
yeah, no
appreciate the time that
problem.
you gave me, and
No problem. Did you
extending.
get something out of the conversation about winners and winning and the Unabombers manifesto?
About everything you said, but I didn't catch the Unabomber portion of that. I'm gonna go back and listen to each live because I've only caught them after my classes or the tail end of them. So I definitely want to hear everything you have to say. I love that you are a historically enriched and you share the history so that people have a better understanding. Um, and yeah, the mangoes. Grateful for that. Grateful for you, brother. Thank you so much.
No problem, no problem. Mango season will be starting very soon, so just holler at me.
Yes, sir. I'm with
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
you.
Bless up.
Blessings. Thank
Yeah,
you.
yeah, bless up. Yeah, let me ask you something, Lowell.
Yes, sir.
Before today, what did you know about the Unabomber?
I missed that part. So I'm not sure. Well, when as you mentioned, I was like Unabomber because there's a couple times in the show, in the shop, I had to move around, so I had it playing,
Okay.
but I missed the part. Can you,
Yeah, we went
if you
over
don't
the
mind?
Unabomber's manifesto and him explaining industrial society and really what causes people to be decadent, what causes people to be emotionally balanced
Oh
because
no.
they're engaged in winning activities. Whereas pre industrial society, people had to be engaged in winning activities just to survive. So in industrial society, there's very few winning activities people need to engage in to survive. The only thing you have to do is have a job, which only requires one thing: obedience. So people are missing what's necessary to formulate personalities based on winning. So when you don't have the opportunity to win, which he calls the power process, you will fall into depression, anxiety, or decadence. And so he talks about that at length. And then the way that you have to circumvent that, you have to, in industrial society, you have to adopt what is called surrogate activities. So these are activities that are reasonably difficult, in which that you can get reasonable success from by putting in a reasonable amount of effort. Because if the success is given to you, you will not be able to partake in the power process, which is the balancing process of the human emotions that get you away from decadence and depression. And if you look at these societies, most people are depressed, even though they might make a lot of money, because they don't have any sense of purpose. They don't have anything that excites them. And all they have is a job that pays them a lot of money, but that job brings no fulfillment, and they're not engaged in the power process. Not the process of having power over other people, but the power process of feeling accomplished as a human being. You there, Lowell? Yeah, that froze. I think you froze up real quick. Someone asked a question like, who do I recommend that people study? I can't tell you who to study. I can tell you who I've studied. I mean, I've studied lots of people from different walks of life. I think you should study the people that the people who you would like to be like, people who have conquered different fields that you're interested in. So like if you're interested in science, you should study legendary scientists. Like if you're interested in engineering, you should study legendary engineers. You should know the people at the top of your field that you're interested in. So if you're into music, you should study the lives of legendary musicians and understand their trials and tribulations and what have you. I'm just interested in greatness. So I don't stick to just one field. So I study people who are unicorns, people who have stood out, what we call, and this is men and women, but it's called peculiar men amongst peculiar men. So what I mean by that, so what I mean by that, like Michael Jordan, he was a peculiar man amongst peculiar men. In other words, it takes a certain high level of talent to just be in the NBA. Then it takes another high level of talent to be a starter in the NBA. Then it takes another high level of talent to be an all-star in the NBA. Then it takes another level of talent to be a starter in the all-star game. And then because you can do an all-star game and sit in the bench, but to be a starter in the all-star game is a peculiar, is another level of talent. But to be somebody who transcends the all-star game, where all the all-star starters state and talk about how they were scared of you.
Yeah.
You're a peculiar man amongst peculiar men.
Making them throw up.
Peculiar woman amongst peculiar women. You understand what I'm saying? I'm very interested in these people. I'm interested in the talents that they come with. I'm interested in their productivity. I'm interested in their process. I'm interested in their worldview. What is it that made them stand out amongst others? Because like I said, there's been several billions of people that have ever existed on this planet Earth, but only a few thousand people who've ever been witnessed and recorded.
Yeah.
And those are the great people. And so what is it about them that made them so important that people had to write about them and preserve their story for history? These are the type of people who really interest me psychologically. Like it's actually a pursuit of trying to understand these people and maybe in a way try to
emulate some of their character.
Emulate their character and to add some of their characteristics into my life. You know what I'm saying? And I think it's important. Like if you are in a pursuit of greatness in anything, you must understand the greatness of those who came before you.
You mentioned earlier.
Like look at Mike Tyson. He studies boxing.
Till this day.
Yeah.
He still studies it. And then
he studies boxers. He can tell you the biography of the great boxers who've ever existed. He studies gladiator warfare.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you were saying?
You mentioned earlier, I actually did catch, I didn't know how you titled it, but I did catch all of that. You mentioned Kobe Bryant earlier in the discussion, and Michael Jordan was asked one time, would you ever coach an NBA team? He said, I can never do that. He's like, why? He says, there's only one person I can coach, and all of you know who he is. But I can't put that expectation on other people because he knows he's built differently. So there was a comparison video. They have various comparison videos of um, Kobe and Jordan, and Kobe studied Jordan to the T, where you see the movements are the same because Kobe understood that Michael Jordan's the greatest. So in order to be the greatest, you have to study the greatest. And anybody, I'm talking about from the Emmitt Smiths to the Walter Paytons to the Hank Aaron's to the Michael Jordans to all these, to be honest with you, Mr. Eccles last night reminded me of Chakanti Diop. That's what
Mm.
he's almost a modern day Diop. I mean, Diop is on a whole different kind of level, but in regards to the different quality traits that Mr. Eccles brings to the table, it's he can be easily be compared to someone like a modern day Diop because Diop brought so much.
Yeah, yeah, it's important. Like if you find geniuses amongst you, you keep them close.
Yeah,
You keep them close because they're going to inspire you and take you to the next level. So, like, and they give you something to emulate. And what I'm gonna say is this. So people ask me, like, someone just asked me, like, who you should study, who I study, and all those types of things. So, for instance, when I was a poet and I decided that I was going to become an entrepreneur and businessman because I felt like business people control the world, right?
absolutely.
Um, what I did was for 1 year, I went on hiatus from discussing politics with anyone, or
Yeah,
world
you
views,
talk about
or
that.
history, or debate, or anything. For 1 year, I went into exile to understand money, business, entrepreneurship, manufacturing, all these types of things. I focused on that for a year. And so one of the things that I did was I watched documentaries of business magnates like Andrew Carnegie, J.P. Morgan, Rockefeller, like the people who actually built America through finance, right? Um, I spent a lot of time learning their stories, man. And what it let me know is like some of these people came from very humble beginnings,
They did.
but usually they had some type of special, peculiar talent. So, for instance, Andrew Carnegie. Those who don't know Andrew Carnegie, he has a university named after him. He has a Carnegie Hall named after him. He was actually one of the wealthiest men ever in American history. Andrew Carnegie was behind steel. So imagine the immense wealth that you're going to have if you're the main person creating steel in a country that's being developed in industrial revolution, right? So basically, everything that's being built in your country requires steel. Your bridges require steel. Like you're right, like steel is a really serious commodity, and he was the main person who innovated in the steel industry, which would you needed to lay for your railroad tracks and all those types of things, right? Because now you're doing like intercontinental travel and the movement of goods and trains and all these types of things. And so you're looking at the story of Andrew Carnegie, and it turns out Andrew Carnegie had a special talent of memory. He could memorize numbers very well. And because he could memorize numbers very well, he was favored by his employers. So that's how he moved up the ranks in employment. And these wealthy men respected him enough to start making him like a partner in the company because he had this particular special talent. So it's important that if you're interested in one being a builder of societies, you need to study like the philosophy of society, people who have built society. So I'll give you an example. These things don't happen by accident. Where Rwanda is in the world in terms of when you go to Rwanda, and one of the things that make me very happy, Lowell, one of these days you'll come to Rwanda with me.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I know it's a wrap.
One of these days, you come to Rwanda with me, and what you see in Rwanda is quite different than you see in other African countries. And the reason why Rwanda is so far and above most so-called developing countries is because their leader, it wasn't by accident. Greatness, particularly consistency of greatness, does not happen by accident. It's done scientifically. It's a formula. And the first step is to study those who've been successful before you.
Absolutely.
So you don't have to reinvent the wheel. See, when you don't have to reinvent the wheel, you have more time to progress and actually eclipse the people before you. But when you have to reinvent the wheel, you're starting from zero. So what he did was, once the Rwandan genocide was over and he won in defeating the genocide against his people, one of the first things he did, he went to Singapore to study. Why? Because Singapore is a small nation that 50 years prior used to be a malaria-infested swamp village.
Word?
Yes.
That I did not know.
And it was one person who had a vision and the discipline and the talent necessary to take it from A to B or A to Z. And the man's name is Lee Kuan Yew. Everybody should study him. And I talk to Pan-Africanists all the time. We talk about nation building and this and that. And I asked them, and I'll ask people, are you familiar with Lee Kuan Yew? And to a number, they'll say no. But you talk about nation building.
Right.
So if you're interested in nation building, you should probably study the person who's had the most impressive record in taking a place in modern time from 0 to 100. Because if you go to Singapore today, you see the most beautiful construction, the most up-to-date buildings, the most organized society. There's no littering in Singapore. Like, there's no littering there. Like, you're heavily fined if you litter there. You actually get caned in public. The police, when they catch you, they cane you in public. They have a cane and they will beat you in public. In Singapore.
That's understandable.
Public shame. It's public shame. You understand what I'm saying? But they did an analysis and they understood this is a small country with a small population. How is it that we can actually develop this country through foreign investment? Well, the first thing you're going to do with foreign investment to attract foreign investment is, guess what? Clean your damn country. No one wants to invest. No one wants to invest in filth.
Real quick, Lee Kuan Yew. This is you talking about the Prime Minister of Singapore?
Yes.
Yeah.
Everybody should study him. I don't care where you come from. If you're interested in your society being developed in a way that's impressive, you need to study Lee Kuan Yew.
He lived a long life too.
Lee Kuan Yew is the man. And Kagame sat at his feet.
Say again?
Paul Kagame sat at his feet. And the other leader who studied Singapore is another top leader in the world that a lot of people don't know about. But if you know, you know. And his name is Nayib Bukele out of El Salvador. He's completely transformed El Salvador. He's a young guy. He's the one who made Bitcoin legal tender.
You're not talking about the current president of El Salvador now, are you?
The current president of El Salvador is one of the greatest leaders on the planet today.
He's badass, and he does not like the American government. The way he talks about.
No, I mean he understood, but he was up against a lot, and I could do a special live just on El Salvador.
Yeah,
because I went there.
Really?
I went for a couple weeks because I wanted to see this myself.
One of my individual that I work with, he's 20 years old, and we were talking about MS-13, something like that, the gang.
Yeah. He got rid of them. They're done.
Oh, so he was telling me about how he got rid of them.
Oh yeah, he got rid of them. They're done. It's over.
And how the U.S. government is not feeling him.
Of course they do. You know why they don't feel him? This is what you got to understand. The reason why the U.S. government, first of all, they're haters anyway. But
absolutely.
But the U.S. government, the reason why the U.S. government is very upset with Nayib Bukele is a couple reasons. What you have to understand is the monetary history of El Salvador. Now, take a trip with me to El Salvador too. Anybody who wants to come to El Salvador, is actually very important that certain people go to El Salvador. I went there for the benefit of Africa because there's some things happening in El Salvador that I think that African countries could adopt. But what people don't know, that El Salvador is like a 2.5-hour flight from Miami. You know how much it costs to get to El Salvador one way? It was like $135.
Are you serious?
Yeah, I think a round trip was like $220, but one way is like $130. So I went. I didn't know anybody there. I went by myself, bro. This was like 2 years ago.
Wow.
So the reason why I went was because they made Bitcoin legal tender.
Okay,
So
I remember you talking about that.
Yes. So what happened was that Nayib Bukele, he's a young guy who became president of El Salvador, and he became president in a very savvy way. He only used social media. He didn't participate in any of the TV debates. He didn't pump money into TV advertisements. He only did Twitter. And he became president. Very interesting story. But the history of El Salvador is that they had their own money. Forget what it's called, it's like the El Salvador Leon or something like that. Then they had another currency that they had. And then they eventually adopted the US dollar, because whenever you have your own currency as a developing country, it gets devalued. Because what happens is that your currency is not strong enough in the world. So what happens is that because you don't have a manufacturing base, you don't have a middle class that can pay taxes to support infrastructure projects, you have to get loans from the IMF. The IMF is a private bank controlled by the United States. The World Bank is a private bank controlled by Europe in the European Union. So the way that these countries stay in debt is that they always have to get loans from the IMF. And as a condition of getting loans from the IMF sets your monetary policy. And they also devalue your currency. The reason why they devalue the currency is to make imports from US businesses cheaper in your country. So that's why they devalue your currency. So what happens is whenever you take a loan from the IMF, you might be able to use it to develop roads, but most of these leaders use it for themselves and their families, right? So they take the US money that they get and then they, put it into Swiss bank accounts. And so you'll never be able to repay back those loans. So you just get more and more loans and your country becomes more and more indebted. Okay? Every now and then you might use it to build roads for a conscientious leader or whatever, but the terms are such that anytime you devalue your currency, you're engaged in time slavery for your people. You might ask, what do I mean by that?
Well, it happens in Venezuela.
You can stop me. You can stop me if you got a question. Do you understand what I mean by time slavery? For your people, whenever currency is devalued?
Yeah, because that happened in Venezuela. It's happening in Venezuela now. Like Venezuela's in a bad shape.
But do you understand the concept of what I mean by time slavery? Let me break it down. Yeah, so let me break it down. Mm-hmm. Say, for instance, you're from Haiti. Haiti's on the gourd, right? And let's just say, in Haiti, they don't manufacture any cars. So all the cars in Haiti are imported.
Right.
And let's just say that you want to buy a car. And you want to save up to buy a car. And let's just use some easy numbers. Let's just say that there's 2 gourds, which is the Haitian currency, to $1 US. Or let's just say it's 1 to 1. Let's just make the math easy. Let's say it's 1 to 1. But now the Haitian government takes loans to make a highway from, let's say, Okap to Port-au-Prince. Mm-hmm. Right? Okay. It's $100 million loan. All right. As a condition of that loan, they tell you the currency is no longer one gourd to one American dollar. It's now two gourds to one American dollar.
Mm-hmm.
And this happens overnight. What does that mean? That means that this car that you were going to buy for $30,000 US would have cost you 30,000 gourd, now cost you 60,000 gourd, which means that you, at the same salary, you have, let's say that salary that you got was going to take you a year to save up for that car. Now it takes you 2 years to save up for that car. So you've now lost a year of your time slavery.
Wow. These demons, man.
And it happens overnight. This is why poor, underdeveloped countries never become developed or catch up. Because the leadership keeps falling for this okie doke of loans from the IMF, which they then devalue your currency. You understand? So now if it's 2 to 1, that 2 to 1 now means 1 to 2, which means that the American dollar can stretch farther in your country. Which means that exports are now cheaper for the American manufacturer.
But more expensive.
So now it's more expensive for the Haitians, but it's cheaper now for the Americans. Do you understand? So they do that to protect American businesses. So now what happens is that you're behind the 8 ball. And guess what happens? You got to get more loans now just to pay off the interest of the other loans. And they tell you what domestically you should grow in terms of agriculture to sell on the world market when they set the prices for the world market. That is the deal that you sign with the devil to get $100 million loan. So, wow. Circle back to El Salvador. I hope people are finding this conversation interesting.
Yeah, man.
So you circle back to El Salvador. El Salvador, before Bukele, the leaders realized we've got to change the currency. We can't use our currency anymore because it keeps getting devalued. What we're going to do is we're going to adopt the American dollar as our legal tender. So in El Salvador, bro, they were using American dollars. In El Salvador, everything that you buy was with American dollars. You got paid with American dollars. You bought food with American dollars. And you still do to this day.
Mm-hmm.
But the problem with using a foreign currency as your currency domestically is that now monetary policy is not controlled in San Salvador, your capital city, is now controlled in Washington, D.C., where you have no say.
Absolutely no say. That's crazy.
So Nayib Bukele undercut them by making Bitcoin legal tender.
Wow.
Where you don't have to use the American dollar for anything in El Salvador. So when I went to El Salvador, you go in there and you pay your entrance fee. You can pay in Bitcoin. You pay for the taxi cab in Bitcoin. You pay for your hotel in Bitcoin. I pay for my food in Bitcoin every day when I was on the beach there. El Zante, big up to all the homies in El Zante. You know what I'm saying? It's called
real
Bitcoin.
talk.
Real talk. I pay for everything in Bitcoin.
My coworker who works there, like I told you, he's 20 years old. He was also telling me that he has relatives there that's darker than me. That's like, he says, "Lord, there's a bunch of Africans over there." It's like, I figured that. We all over the planet.
Oh yeah. There's a special, there's a special place where there's like an African community there, but it's mainly like old school Mayans. You know what I'm saying? The Mayan Empire. Mm-hmm. That's what you have there. And I was actually thinking about moving to El Salvador to live there. The problem is they don't have a sufficient amount of reggae music there for me. Like, you know what I mean? All the music was like
Latin.
Their music, like I need to hear some. You know what I mean? I gotta be around that energy, man. I gotta be around reggae music. So it's like, but they're doing some fascinating things, man. And so because they bought Bitcoin, invested in Bitcoin, they've made so much money because they were buying Bitcoin when Bitcoin was like $12,000. They've gotten a 5x return on their Bitcoin. So because it's $70,000 now. Yeah. So I'm talking to the cab drivers and I'm asking the cab driver, do you want me to pay you in Bitcoin or in US dollars? You know what the cab driver said? The cab driver said, pay me in Bitcoin, please. And I was like, why? Why do you prefer Bitcoin? This is what the cab driver told me. He said, because Bitcoin eventually goes up in value. So I used to, after I finished driving, I would go to the bar and spend money on alcohol. Now because I get paid in Bitcoin, I don't spend any money because I'm building up my wealth for my family. So he understood that Bitcoin is their way out. And so if he's been getting paid Bitcoin out, remember, Bitcoin, when I went there, Bitcoin was like 15,000 when I went there. So if he's been saving all his money in Bitcoin right now, he's getting a 5x return just on saving money.
Minimum.
On saving.
Minimum.
Whereas if he saved in the US dollar, it would have been depreciated because of inflation. Inflation is at 8%. According to the CPI, and it's even more than that. It's more like 20%.
Oh, word?
Yeah, it's more like 20% because in the CPI, they don't include like the cost of fuel and the cost of food. It's crazy. That's a whole different economic conversation.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's a fraud. Like what they're saying about the inflation rate is actually a fraud because they don't even take into account like monetary expansion. Like it's controlled by CPI, which is Consumer Price Index. It leaves out a few things that people spend money on a daily basis, like fuel and food. So like, it's not even real, but the person who's buying eggs knows how much eggs cost today as compared to like 2020 or 1995. Like we know that because $20 used to fill up your grocery cart back in the day. You understand what I'm saying? When we were young men. And so now it's like, it doesn't even do that, right? And it's not that things got more valuable, it's that the money got less valuable. So you have to use more money to pay for the same item. That is what is called inflation, and that is what is called the theft of wealth through inflationary policy by printing money. And so because Bitcoin is hard capped, you'll see volatility, but you'll see a net rise in Bitcoin. And so what Nayib Bukele said was, I want my people to save in Bitcoin instead of US dollars because we're going to build a wealthy society. And if you look at the economic prognosticators, in the next 10 to 15 years, if El Salvador keeps going at the rate that it's going, it will be in the top 10% of wealthiest people per capita.
That's so fire, bro. That's so dope. Like he sees his vision. Like he sees it. He has clear vision, bro. Clear vision. I see Zakia came back in, but I think her mic is muted.
Yeah, I think she's muted, but she came back in. What's up, Zakia?
Zakia got the vibrations going. She's trying to motivate brother. You know, I'm tempted. I already brought it out. You know what I'm saying? I'm so ready to just reach and just grab my joint. You know.
Yeah, man, grab it, man. Light up, blaze up, man. Do your thing, bro.
That's the new word now. Rise up, raise up. I think that's the word word. That's the new slang.
And blaze up, do your thing, man. You know, I blaze up. So, but yeah, this is real, you know. And here's the thing is like these places are not far from us, and it's good for us to go see things for ourselves because you can't rely on the news media.
Nah, the news is
like
always
I was in El Salvador and people were trying to tell me about El Salvador. I was like, I remember like someone tell me, oh, you in El Salvador, this is what's going on, and it's a terrible place. And I was like, and I remember I was like, I'm in El Salvador right now. It was someone online trying to argue with me about what's going on in El Salvador. And I'm like, I'm actually here right now. This is what you're saying is not true. You're reading the US media. Like, I'm actually literally here. And he was like, what do you mean you're there? I said, I'm in San Salvador right now. You understand what I'm saying? Like what you're saying is not true.
Yeah,
so the U.S. media is a crazy propaganda tool, man. You have no sense of the world if you get it from the U.S. media, and that's real talk. And then you have no sense of how close these countries are to you. Like people have no idea that that Haiti is literally a 40-minute flight from Miami.
Yeah.
It takes me as long to fly to Haiti from Miami as it does to get to Orlando, Florida. Your trip from Miami to Orlando is the same amount of time from Miami to Haiti, to Port-au-Prince.
That's crazy.
People don't realize that because you think it's a whole different world, and you understand what I'm saying? And so because of that, we don't avail ourselves of actually seeing the world and seeing the world for ourselves. So now we just know the world through innuendo and whisper, which is really the U.S. media. No, man, I advise everybody go to take a trip to El Salvador. If you into Bitcoin and you like really want to understand like monetary policy, what it can do, it's not theory anymore. There is a country where Bitcoin is legal tender. So if you really want to know what Bitcoin is about and what it can do and how it can change a society, go to El Salvador. And I haven't even gotten into like all the different monetary things they're doing with the Bitcoin loan. They're doing like Bitcoin financing, so they don't have to get money from the IMF anymore. They have a whole way where people can actually invest into Bitcoin bonds. It's crazy. Like, we'll talk about it. We'll talk about Bitcoin bonds, but these are all the ideas that African leaders need to start really focusing on, and people who are interested in like African societies, or even different ethnic groups are interested in like rising up and doing better for the people. Look, we don't need to reinvent the wheel. You find out where the best examples of success are, and you understand them and try to emulate.
Absolutely.
And even innovate above that. And what I'm saying is that that's what you do when you're serious. But most people are just flapping their gums. They don't go, they don't travel, they don't see what's going on in the world. They think that what they think is the thing to do, but they haven't seen the world. And like being in America is so crazy because like even amongst the Black population, got so many opinions about Africa. And you ask folks if they've been to Africa and they say no. Like they got so many negative opinions. Oh, Africans don't like us. Who told you that? Oh no, Africans don't like us, blah, 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 blah. And I'm just like, yo, first of all, you're not going to Africa because you think Africans don't like you as a Black American. When has that stopped you from being anywhere? You love to live around crackers who don't like you. You know what I'm saying? What does not liking you had to do with your presence anywhere? You understand what I'm saying? Like you had whole busing movements to go to school with these people. You want to live in their neighborhood. You want to live with Jethro and Billy Bob. You know what I'm saying? You don't have a problem living with them, but you got a problem. You think Kwame and Akua don't like you, so you're not gonna go there. But Jethro and Billy Bob don't like you. You got no problem living around them, packing your bags and moving to their neighborhood. Like you're crazy. Like
you're checking me up, yo.
This is what I'm saying is that people got all these strong opinions. You ask them where they're getting these opinions from, and it's like, yo, like just say what it is, what it is. You're just allergic to Africa because really you're suffering from what the Unabomber talks about, low self-esteem. Yeah. Because you don't feel like our people have had a win in so long. And I can understand that because even the people that were made to celebrate didn't necessarily win. So for instance, like Hannibal. Mm-hmm. Hannibal lost.
Like Hannibal lost after
no, Hannibal lost. He was defeated.
He was defeated, but look what it took to defeat him.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is that he ended up losing.
Yeah.
So like in history, when we're taught to like celebrate people, a lot of the people that were taught to celebrate actually were defeated. You understand what I'm saying? Like we have to look at like real success, like people who had like real success and like actually defeated adversaries. Like Hannibal got slaughtered in Rome. When he made it there, when he crossed the Alps with the elephants and all of that, he actually made it to Rome and lost. Like because the whole thing about Phoenicians was their mortal enemies were Romans. Mm-hmm. So he was raised to actually despise Romans. And it was actually part of a self-fulfilling prophecy for him to become a general to defeat Rome, but he actually lost. And in Carthage at that time, you know how they said hello to each other, how they greet each other. They greeted each other. Greetings, Carthaginian citizen. Rome must fall. That was the way they did it. That's how they greeted each other. It's just like Haitians.
Yeah,
A lot of people don't realize that the way Haitians greet each other is based on the Haitian Revolution. Did you know that?
I did not know that.
Okay.
And I'm Haitian.
What's the response to sac passe?
Matboulé.
What does matboulé mean?
Nothing's
Do you
going
know?
on.
No. It means we're burning. Boulé means burning. So when Haitians greet each other, they're talking about when they were burning down the plantations of the slave masters, and that language still exists till today. So Haitians say sac passe, like what's happening, and the response is we're burning.
Wow.
You understand what I'm saying? That's part of the Haitian consciousness. And a lot of people don't even understand that.
That I did not know.
But this is what I'm saying. We're not taught these things.
No. We are not taught those things. We're not taught them for a reason. The moment, when we're empowered, it's really a wrap. When we're empowered, it's a wrap.
Yeah, man. So, I mean, we just want to have this conversation about winning and what winners do, what winners look like, the mindset of a winner, how the world, the type of stories a winner gravitates towards, what type of research a winner does, who a winner emulates. We emulate other people who won, and we looking to advance on what they did. The problem is that a lot of us don't know where to go to find the winners, and the people who are fed to us didn't actually win. So we have to find people who won, people who've been successful in different things, because nothing ensures success better than the study of success. But if you study failure, you're going to actually emulate failure.
Yeah.
You understand what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
So that's what this conversation was about, because I know a lot of people are looking for ways to win in their personal life. But it also makes it hard for you to win in your personal life if everything around you reflects losing. So you've got to create an environment of winning yourself. So when you win, you got to make sure that you show your friends how to win, your family how to win, those who are willing to listen how to win. So you create really feedback loop of winners. Because what happens is that the losers become dead weight. It's not that we don't have sympathy for the losers, but when you're fighting a war, you don't have the time for people who aren't really picking up their own weight.
Yeah. And that's
you understand what I'm saying?
Man, you're just speaking facts.
So hopefully this was a useful conversation. I see Zakia came back. You got something you want to add to the convo, Zakia?
Yeah, see, the mic is off.
Testing.
Yeah, we hear you.
Cool. Now, I just had a couple of questions that I had posted in the Facebook Live, and I wanted to hear. I wanted to ask them yesterday, but I didn't get a chance to. So I was asking about your thoughts on Brother Terrence Howard's arithmetic theories, and your thoughts, opinions, and knowledge on that.
Yeah, I think that his arithmetic. So to bring people up to speed, we kind of would have to play what he's talking, because not everyone understands his theories, and I think that would probably be appropriate for another stream, because not everyone's going to understand. I think he has some interesting ideas. I think that I've heard people, have certain critiques about his arithmetic theories. He talks about the square root of 2 and all of that. So, I think we can table that and actually have some mathematicians come on. I am what you would call an informal mathematician, but I can get some people on who've done high-level mathematics, because it's always good to hear people who are experts talk about chosen fields. I'm more of a dabbler in mathematics. Every now and then I'll bust out a calculus book and just do it for fun. But it's good to have people who really do this thing on a serious level speak about it. So, I have some engineers that I'm in touch with as well, like I told you, and maybe we can talk about that question. But what intrigues you so much about Terrence Howard and his mathematical conversations?
Good question.
I was always horrible at math, and
Okay.
part of what he describes is why my understanding. Uh, I just couldn't get past certain things.
Mm-hmm.
On top of anxiety regarding math concepts,
Mm-hmm.
uh, contributed to that, and not just his arithmetic theories, but also he says he has a few doctors working on just he described what certain vibrational energy does to your DNA
Right.
and healing conditions.
Right. Right. So the power of every theory is based on the strength of its predictive value. I'll say it again. The power of every theory is based on the strength of its predictive value. So if he's able to show that these frequencies he's talking about, because he does talk about frequencies a lot, and um, how different things respond to different frequencies. And I am somewhat familiar with it because I know about Rife therapy, where you use certain frequencies to kill parasites. And that was developed by a woman named Hulda Clark, Dr. Hulda Clark. I don't know if you're familiar with her frequency Rife machines. Are you familiar with that?
Doctor who? Say it again.
Hulda Clark, Hulda Clark.
Okay.
And Zakia came off again. But those people who are interested in frequencies and health, I would say one of the first people you want to look up is a woman called Dr. Hulda Clark.
Dr.
We
Holder.
can, we can discuss that, on another live stream. But we've been on for about 3.5 hours, and we had a great conversation about winning. Big up, Akhenaten joined us, brother Al Moore. Big up, Akhenaten.
Okay, she passed as well.
Yeah.
Dr.
Yep.
Holder.
And Sister Ami says she has one of Hulda's books. So, yeah, she's a very important person in understanding frequencies and health. And she was dealing with a thing called a Rife machine, Rife. But these were frequencies to kill parasites, and that's also the link to also reversing cancer. I have the intracellular parasite theory around cancer, and she did a lot of work around that as well. So, what I want to do is I want to start to sign. So people will be on. We're on Monday through Thursday having these conversations, and hopefully it's enlightening. If you found this enlightening, go ahead and hit up the Cash app. If you have any type of loose change that you might be spending on something frivolous that does not edify you, and you found this to be empowering and edifying, feel free, because what we do is we use that to keep doing what we're doing, and it's an exchange in energy. So I think that the people who've tuned in today, going over the Unabomber's Manifesto, going over the psychology of winning, what winning looks like, what losing looks like. I think that this was probably very informative and instructive to many people who tuned in. And these are
Absolutely.
type of high-level conversations we like to have. And I want to be live every Monday through Thursday. We're going to do 8 p.m. Some people are asking to go earlier. I might do some in the day, and you just have to watch it in the night. But right now, we're just doing 8 p.m. and closing out. Usually, hopefully, do a 3-hour session and then just circle back and do it the next day. So tomorrow's Thursday. I'll be posting the topic that we'll be covering, and we'll be, having a conversation about. So people said they want to talk about economics. Maybe we can talk about a little bit about Bitcoin tomorrow, and how I taught myself basic economics to understand what's going on in the world. And we can have people chime in on that. So we can have that conversation tomorrow as well. But I've had a pleasure speaking to y'all and talking to y'all, and I'm glad that you all got something out of this live today. And big up Lowell for tuning in and
Absolutely.
participating in the conversation, man. And
Absolutely.
we will see y'all tomorrow evening. All right. Hope this has been edifying for everybody who tuned in. Big up.
Give
Bless.
thanks. Yeah, man.